Okay, thank you very much. We have a cabinet meeting. We'll have a few questions after Grace, and if you would, Ben, please do the honors.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're so thankful for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us in this country. And we're thankful for the people of courage who have been here before us, who have fought hard for the rights of our country. And we thank you for President Donald Trump, who also exhibits great courage in face of constant criticism. And we ask that you would give him strength to endure and the wisdom to lead and to recognize you as the sovereign of the universe with the solution to everything. And the people around the president, the vice president, the cabinet, the advisors, give us all an understanding heart and a compassionate heart. Those are the things that will keep America great and help us all to recognize as a nation that separation of church and state means that the church does not dominate the state, and it means the state does not dominate the church. It doesn't mean that they cannot work together to promote godly principles of loving your fellow man, of caring about your neighbor, of developing your God-given talents to the utmost so that you become valuable to the people around you, of having values and principles that govern your life. And if we do those things, then we will always be successful. And we thank you for hearing our prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Ben. That was a great job. Appreciate it. The economy is doing fantastically well. It's getting very close to another record. We've had many records since we won office. We're getting very close to another record. I don't know if anybody saw the household median income for 8 years of President Bush. It rose $400. For 8 years of President Obama, it rose $975. And for 2.5 years of President Trump, they have it down as 2.5 years, it rose $5,000, not including $2,000 for taxes, so it rose, let's say, $7,000. So in 2.5 years, we're up $7,000 compared to $1,000 compared to $400. And that's for 8 years and 8 years. That's a number that just came out, but that's a number that I don't know how there could be any dispute or any, I've never heard of a number like that. Meaning the economy is doing fantastically well. We need for our farmers, our manufacturers, for frankly unions and non-unions, we need USMCA to be voted on. If it's voted on, it'll pass. It's up to Nancy Pelosi to put it up. If she puts it up, it's going to pass. It's going to be very bipartisan. It's something that's very much needed. It will be hundreds of thousands of jobs. Mexico and Canada have approved it. It's done. They're waiting for our approval. And we can't seem to get votes. I call them the do-nothing Democrats. I mean that. They've done nothing. But this is something they can do very easily. We'll give them bipartisan approvals and credits, all the credits they want, but they have to be able to do it. So the economy is doing fantastically well. We want to vote on USMCA. We have other trade deals that we've done. We've done South Korea, which is a fantastic deal for us. Turned out even better than we thought. South Korea was a terrible deal. The person in charge of that particular deal, Hillary Clinton, if you've heard of her, she's the one that's accusing everybody of being a Russian agent. Anybody that is opposed to her is a Russian agent. So that's a scam that was pretty much put down. Tulsi, I don't know Tulsi, but she's not a Russian agent. I don't know Jill Stein. I know she likes environment. I don't think she likes Russians. If she does like them, I know she's not an asset. She called her an asset of Russia. These people are sick. There's something wrong with them. But I think that Tulsi Gabbard probably got helped quite a bit by this stir. I think we were helped because it shows for 2.5 years we end up winning. I had to go through 2.5 years. If she would have done this earlier, people would have realized what a scam it is. Everybody's a Russian or a Russian agent or a Russian asset. The economy, again, is at a level that it's never been. We are doing, whether it's household income, whether it's almost any chart, and I think maybe the best of all is unemployment. Unemployment has reached historic lows. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American reach numbers that nobody ever thought would be possible, have the lowest ever in history. So if you're black, if you're Hispanic, if you're Asian, anybody, African American, Hispanic American, Asian, the lowest in history. For women, the lowest in 71 years, the best. When I say lowest, I'm talking about the best. Both the best unemployment numbers and the best employment numbers. Either way you want to cut it. You can say them both, because it's best in both. As far as employment is concerned, we have the most people working today than ever before in the history of our country. We've never had this close to 160 million people. So it's some incredible things are happening. Syria, we will be giving a much fuller report. Mike Pompeo, Secretary of Defense, Esper, and the different people that are very much involved. Mike Pence, Vice President, we're having very good news coming out. The ceasefire is holding. The Kurds are moving out to safer areas beyond the safe zone, as we call it. Having a safe zone is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And plenty of Turks have been killed because of conflict on their border. So, you know, you have to look at it both ways. But the ceasefire is absolutely holding. There's some skirmishes, but very little, relatively speaking. Of course, if you watch the fake news, it's like pretty wild. It's really holding. I've watched these pundits that have been working on this thing for 20 years. They've been working on the Middle East for 20 years. They don't know what they're doing, and they're telling me what to do. They're saying, what did Trump get out of it? What did he get out of it? I'll tell you what he get out of it. We won't be fighting, and we'll bring our soldiers back home. They were supposed to be there for 30 days, and they've been there now for 10 years in Syria. 10 years. They were supposed to go in, do a quick hit on ISIS, and come out. Now, as far as ISIS is concerned, when I took over, November 2016, ISIS was all over the place. I'm the one, meaning it was me and this administration, working with others, including the Kurds, that captured all of these people that you're talking about right now. Because President Obama, it was a mess. And I was told, and you were told, and everybody told, it would be years before you ever did what I did in about a month and a half after I started. I went over to Iraq, I met with our generals, then we figured out a plan, and it was done within a month and a half. So I'm the one that did the capturing. I'm the one that knows more about it than you people or the fake pundits. But I sort of have to smile to myself. I was telling a couple of people, I'm watching these people that I've been watching for 20 years. I've been watching the same faces. They're just a little bit older and a little bit grayer. I've been watching them for 20 years saying about the Middle East, and they've been wrong on everything they've ever said. And now all of a sudden people are starting to say, you know, what Trump is doing is great. And we have a tremendous power, because since the election of 2016, November, since that beautiful day, our country's picked up in value trillions and trillions of dollars of worth. Trillions and trillions of dollars. Numbers that nobody would believe. Numbers, if I would have said it on the campaign trail, I would have been excoriated by the fake media. Excoriated. The numbers are far greater than anything that even I predicted. You hear that with the household median income. $400 for 8 years. $975 for 8 years. $7,000 for 2.5 years. Up. Nobody's ever seen numbers. Larry Kudlow is going to speak in a minute, and he's going to tell you that it's one of the greatest strengths of our country. And by the way, other areas and countries are doing poorly. Europe is doing very poorly. Asia is doing very poorly. China is doing very poorly. Worst year they've had in 57 years. I wonder why. I wonder why. I'm sure you can't figure it out. And we're doing great. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars in tariffs from China. And they're eating the tariffs because they devalued their currency. And they're pouring money into their economy because they don't want to lose their jobs, but they are losing their jobs. They're having a terrible year, worse than 57 years, they say. And if they say that, it means it's worse. And they announce that they have the worst numbers they've had in 20 years. They announced 6. I don't think it's 6. I think it's probably minus something. Could very well be minus. Could very well be in negative territory. But we're doing great. And by the way, the deal with China is coming along very well. They want to make a deal because they sort of have to make a deal, I think. They have to make a deal because their supply chain is going down the tubes. Their supply chain is broken, like you've never seen anything broken before. It's broken. So our soldiers are in Syria. They're moving out very nicely. ISIS is being held by the Kurds. And I have an absolute commitment from Turkey that they're watching them just in case. So we have a double. We have the Kurds are watching them. As you know, most of the ISIS fighters that we captured, not Obama, we captured them. Our country captured them, working with others, including the Kurds. And we helped them, don't forget. We helped the Kurds. Everyone said the Kurds helped us. That's true. We helped the Kurds. They're no angels, but we helped the Kurds. And we never gave the Kurds a commitment that we'd stay for the next 400 years and protect them. They've been fighting with the Turks for 300 years that people know of. And nobody ever committed, gee, if you do this, we're going to do that, we're going to stay with you forever. Nobody ever said that. But when I watch these pundits that always are trying to take a shot, they say, what are we getting out of it? You know what we're getting out of it? We're bringing our soldiers back home. That's a big thing. And it's going to probably work. But if it doesn't work, you're going to have people fighting like they've been fighting for 300 years. It's very simple. It's really very simple. But we're going to bring our soldiers back home. So far, there hasn't been one drop of blood shed during this whole period by an American soldier. Nobody was killed. Nobody cut their finger. There's been nothing. And they're leaving. Rather, I think, not expeditiously, rather intelligently, just leaving certain areas, leaving. We've secured the oil. If you remember, I didn't want to go into Iraq. I was a civilian, so I had no power over it, but I always was speaking against going into Iraq. It was not a great decision. But I always say, if you're going in, keep the oil. Same thing here, keep the oil. We want to keep the oil. And we'll work something out with the Kurds so that they have some money, they have some cash flow. Maybe we'll get one of our big oil companies to go in and do it properly. But they'll have some cash flow, which they basically don't have right now. Everybody's fighting. It's not a big oil area, but everybody's fighting for whatever there is. So we have a lot of good things going over there, and they're going very well. As far as the continuation of the witch hunt, we beat the Russian deal, we beat the Mueller deal. Now I find out, as I said before, that they're trying to make other people into Russian agents, Russian assets. It has no credibility. Now they have what should be extremely easy to beat because they have a perfect phone call. I made a perfect call, not a good call, perfect call. In fact, a friend of mine who's a great lawyer said, did you know this would be the subject of all of this scrutiny? Because the way you express yourself, this is like a perfect call. You must have known this was going to happen. No, I didn't. That's just the way I talked to the president of Ukraine, who, by the way, said there was no pressure. There was no blackmail. There was no anything. And Congressman Hurd, I have to tell you, yesterday it was great. It was great what he said. I gained a lot of respect for him very quickly because he said, you know, with all of this going on, I haven't heard one Ukrainian say there was pressure. I haven't heard one Ukrainian, not one, say that there was pressure of any kind. There haven't even been reports of it to our people. Nobody's even said it. And the reason you haven't heard it because there is no pressure. The conversation I had was perfect. And what happened is I released the conversation, and that threw Shifty Schiff off. Crooked, he's a corrupt politician. Schiff is a corrupt politician. That threw him off because he made up a lie. He made up what I said in my conversation. And he went before the United States Congress, and he said a made-up story. It was fabricated. He totally fabricated. They say he's a screenwriter. Well, this was screenwritten. There was a fabricated story. So he made up a lie, and I released, they never thought that I'd do this. I released a transcription done by stenographers of the exact conversation I had. And now the game was up. And the other thing is, the whistleblower and the other whistleblower and the informer, all these people that seem to have disappeared. You know why they disappeared? Because they talked about another conversation. A conversation that I never had. They made up a conversation. Now, if you look at the whistleblower report, and you look at the actual transcribed conversation, the actual conversation that he had, and you couple that with the president saying that that was a perfectly fine conversation. I don't even know. He doesn't even know what they're doing. He didn't even know about the money not being paid. Okay, I think that came out somewhere, that the money, he didn't know that. Then you also have his foreign minister saying, no, it was a very good conversation. There was no anything asked for. There was no pressure whatsoever. So there's a phony investigation. I watched a couple of people on television today talking about it. They were talking about what a phony deal it is, what a phony investigation it is. And the Republicans have to get tougher and fight. We have some that are great fighters, but they have to get tougher and fight because the Democrats are trying to hurt the Republican Party for the election, which is coming up, where we're doing very well. We're had a record crowd. The history of the arena, it's the biggest crowd they've ever had, and we had 20,000 people outside at least. We're doing great in the election. You saw what happened in North Carolina. We picked up 2 seats that people didn't think we were going to pick up. That was 2 weeks ago. Last week, a governor that people thought was okay went down, and now he's got a big election. He was under 50%. Nobody thought that was going to happen. We're doing very well. But a lot of the stories that are made up between a guy like Shifty Schiff, who's a phony guy, corrupt politician, the media buys it. Because unfortunately, the media is corrupt also. Much of the media, so much of it, such a big percentage of it. It's such a shame. Some great reporters, some great journalists, but some really bad people. So that's the story. The economy's good. We're doing well with getting out finally after 10 years. Again, 30 days to 10 years. And we're getting out. None of our people are injured. It's very smooth thus far. And I think that you're going to see something that's going to be good. Remember this, if Turkey misbehaves, I don't think they will. But we have a power that nobody thought we had to the extent. It's called sanctions. It's called tariffs. We'll tariff the hell of their product coming here. They send tremendous amounts of steel to the United States and other things. We will tariff them and we will sanction them. But I don't want to use that as a threat because Mike Pence and our Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, they went out and they negotiated a very good 5-day ceasefire. I'm sure if we needed a little extension, that would be happening. But our power is our power of economics. It's a great power. We've rebuilt the military since November of 2016. Our military was totally depleted from being in stupid situations like this for so many years. Our military was depleted to a level that we had very little ammunition. I was actually told we had no ammunition. Now we have more ammunition than we've ever had. Our military is as strong or stronger than it's ever been, probably stronger than ever. And in a few short months, as the equipment pours in from the money we spent, $2.5 trillion, it will be at a level that it's never even come close to. It's a big difference. All made in the USA. All made in the USA. So we're doing very well, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
President, will you maintain a limited number of troops in Syria?
Excuse me?
Will you maintain a limited number of troops in Syria?
Well, we don't think it's going to be necessary. I don't want to leave troops there. It's very dangerous for, we had 28 troops as it turned out. People said 50, it was 28. And you had an army on both sides of those troops. Those troops would have been wiped out. I don't think it's necessary, other than that we secured the oil. It's in a little different section, but we just secured the oil. And the other region where we've been asked by Israel and Jordan to leave a small number of troops is a totally different section of Syria near Jordan and close to Israel. And that's a totally different section. That's a totally different mindset. So we have a small group there, and we've secured the oil. Other than that, there's no reason for it, in our opinion. And again, the Kurds are going to be watching. We're working with the Kurds. We have a good relationship with the Kurds. But we never agreed to, protect the Kurds. We fought with them for 3.5 to 4 years. We never agreed to protect the Kurds for the rest of their lives. Remember this. When Iraq was fighting the Kurds, everybody thought we were going to fight with the Kurds. I said, well, it's a little strange that we're fighting with the Kurds when we just spent $4 trillion on Iraq, and now we're going to be fighting Iraq. So what I did is I said, we're not going to take a position. Let them fight themselves. I thought the Kurds would do very well. Everyone said, oh, the Kurds will do very well. Well, Iraq moved in and the Kurds left. They didn't fight because they didn't have us to fight with. A lot of people are good when they fight with us. You know, when you have $10 billion worth of airplanes shooting 10 miles in front of your line, it's much easier to fight. But with that, they were a good help, but we were a great help to them too. They were fighting ISIS. You know, they hated ISIS. So they were fighting ISIS. But we never agreed. Where's an agreement that said we have to stay in the Middle East for the rest of humanity, for the rest of civilization to protect the Kurds? It never said that. And we have protected them. We've taken very good care of them. And I hope they're going to watch over ISIS, because that's, again, most of it's not in the safe zone, as we call it. Some places called demilitarized zone. In the old days, would call areas like this a demilitarized zone. And our relationship with the Kurds is good, and they're going to be safe. And I will say this, if shooting didn't start for a couple of days, I don't think the Kurds would have moved. I don't think, frankly, you would have been able to make a very easy deal with Turkey. I think when it started for a few days, it was so nasty that when we went to Turkey and when we went to the Kurds, they agreed to do things that they never would have done before the shooting started. If they didn't go through 2.5 days of hell, I don't think they would have done it. I think you couldn't have made a deal. And people have been trying to make this deal for years. But we're close to making it. We'll see what happens. Again, they've been fighting for 300 years that we know of. 300 years. So why should we put our soldiers in the midst of two large groups, hundreds of thousands potentially of people that are fighting? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yes?
You said Republicans need to get tougher and fight. What are you talking about?
Well, I think the Democrats fight dirty. I think the Democrats are lousy politicians with lousy policy. They want open borders. They don't care about crime. They want sanctuary cities. They don't care about drugs. They don't care about almost anything. They don't care about USMCA. How about that? I think they're lousy politicians. But two things they have. They're vicious and they stick together. They don't have Mitt Romney in their midst. They don't have people like that. They stick together. You never see them break off. You never see somebody go out and... That's why I respected so much what I watched with Will Hurd today. Because he was one of the few that didn't seem to be there, and yet he made a statement. He said, well, I haven't seen any complaints whatsoever from the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians didn't complain, and they didn't tell any of our ambassadors. This thing is all about a letter that was perfect. You never hear the letter anymore. It was all about whistleblowers. You never hear, what happened to the whistleblower? They're gone because they've been discredited. What happened to the informant? And where's the IG? Why did the IG read the letter, read the transcript? He could have gotten it, I guess, I assume. I would have declassified it for him if I had to do that. Why didn't he read this and then see that the whistleblower's account was totally different than the letter? Then he would have said, oh, there's no problem here. The whistleblower gave a false account. Now you have to say, well, do we have to protect somebody that gave a false account? You know, these whistleblowers, they have them like they're angels. Okay? So do we have to protect somebody that gave a totally false account of my conversation? I don't know. You tell me. Do we have to protect the informant? Now, I happen to think there probably wasn't an informant. You know, the informant went to the whistleblower. The whistleblower had second and third hand information. You remember that. That was a big problem. But the information was wrong. So was there actually an informant? Maybe the informant was Schiff. It could be Shifty Schiff. In my opinion, it's possibly Schiff. Why didn't Schiff say that he and his staff or a whole group, why didn't he say that he met with the whistleblower? He knew all about the whistleblower. Why didn't he say? He's a crooked politician. Very bad for our country. This whole thing is very bad for our country. In the midst of that, I'm trying to get out of wars. And we may have to get in wars too. Okay? We may have to get in wars. We're better prepared than we've ever been. If Iran does something, they'll be hit like they've never been hit before. I mean, we have things that we're looking at. But can you imagine? I have to fight off these lowlifes. At the same time, I'm negotiating these very important things that should have been done during Obama and Bush and even before that. All right? So that's where we are right now. Actually, very good. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, will the troops from Syria come home, or will you send them to other military
Well, they're going to be
bases?
sent initially to different parts, get prepared, then ultimately we're bringing them home. We're bringing our troops back home. I got elected on bringing our soldiers back home. Now, it's not very popular within the Beltway, because, you know, Lockheed doesn't like it, and these great military companies don't like it. It's not very popular. And outside the Beltway, my largest cheer in Dallas, I had 25,000 people close in that arena, a record crowd. I had so many people outside of the arena, thousands. My largest cheer that night was two things. We're building the wall. That's number one. And number two, and probably tied for number one, was we're bringing our soldiers back home. That was our largest cheer in Dallas. Great place. Great state, Texas. Tough state. They're tough. When I said we're bringing our soldiers back home, the place went crazy. But within the Beltway, you know, people don't like it. It's much tougher for me. It'd be much easier for me to let our soldiers be there, let them continue to die. I go out to Dover and I have to, I meet parents. It's not a pleasant thing. It's the most unpleasant thing I do. Most unpleasant thing I do. When I see that big cargo plane open and I see those coffins get rolled off, or when I go over to Walter Reed Hospital where the doctors are incredible, by the way. Saving people that could have never been saved even 5 years ago. You know that. But those people are horribly wounded, horribly, horribly wounded. Wounded warriors. It's the toughest thing I do. Toughest thing is sending letters. I send many letters home to parents, and I speak to parents, but I send many letters home to parents. Their son or daughter has been killed over in the Middle East. For what? For what? There are times to fight, and there are times not to fight. There are times to be smart. We have tremendous economic power, and we're using our economic power much more powerful in certain ways than playing with guns. And much better for our country, and much better for everybody, and actually much better for humanity, okay? Thank you all very much, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Doral was a very simple situation. I own a property in Florida. I was going to do it at no cost or give it free if I got a ruling, because there's a question as to whether or not you're allowed to give it, because it's like a contribution to a country. I'd have to get a ruling. But I would have given it for nothing. It's a lot of money I would have given away. Like I give away my salary. I give away my salary. It's, I guess, close to $450,000. I give it away. Nobody ever said he gives away his salary. Now it comes up because of this. But I give away my presidential salary. They say that no other president has done it. I'm surprised, to be honest with you. They actually say that George Washington may have been the only other president to do it. But see whether or not Obama gave up his salary. See whether or not all of the other of your favorites give up their salary. The answer is no. They say it's the only one. They think George Washington did, but they say no other. So I give up. It's a lot of money, $450,000, close to. And I give that up. So I have a place that's in the best location. I'm very good at real estate, very, very good. Much better than you even understand. When you see my financials, which I'll give at the right time, you'll say, man, he was much better than we even thought. This guy knows right here, Mnuchin, because he was in the private sector. He knows very much what I have. He would tell you. Someday maybe he'll tell you. But I'm very good at real estate. There's Miami, this facility, everybody would have had their own building. Everybody in the G7 would have had their own building. It was so good. Florida loved it. They love economic development. It's not because it's a beautiful place. It's new. It's been totally rebuilt. It's new. Everything's good. Got massive meeting rooms. Unlimited for security because it's on, hundreds of acres. Best location. Right next to the airport, Miami International, one of the biggest airports in the world. Some people say it's the biggest, but one of the biggest airports in the world. It's only minutes away. It would have been great. But the Democrats went crazy. Even though I would have done it free, saved the country a lot of money. Then they say, oh, but you'll get promotion. Who cares? You don't think I get enough promotion? I get more promotion than any human being that's ever lived. I think I get. I think I would have that. I think I can say that fairly safely. I think I get more promotion than any human being that's ever lived. Some good, some bad. The people that like me give me only good. The people that don't like me give me only bad. But that's the way life is. I don't need promotion. I don't need promotion. Okay? But I was willing to do this for free. And it would have been the greatest G7 ever. And I would have said to my family, because they run my business now, I don't run my business. I actually put all the stuff in trusts. They run my, and I didn't have to do that, but under no obligation to do it. You know, I don't know if you know it, George Washington. He ran his business simultaneously while he was president. Many other presidents, there weren't too many really rich presidents, but there were a few. They ran their business. Hey, Obama made a deal for a book. Is that running a business? I'm sure he didn't even discuss it while he was president. He has a deal with Netflix. When did they start talking about that? That's only, you know, a couple of examples. But other presidents, if you look, other presidents were wealthy, not huge wealth. George Washington was actually considered a very, very rich man at the time. But they ran their businesses. George Washington, they say, had two desks. He had a presidential desk and a business desk. I don't think you people with this phony emoluments clause, and by the way, I would say that it's cost me anywhere from $2 to $5 billion to be president. And that's okay, between what I lose and what I could have made. I would have made a fortune. If I just ran my business, I was doing it really well. I have a great business. I have the best properties. But between what I lose, and in all fairness, some properties, Doral an example. Doral was setting records when I bought it, because I owned it for a period of time. Setting records. It was going to, there was nothing like it. It was making a fortune. And then what happened? I announced I'm going to run for office, right? And all of a sudden, and I say, we're going to build a wall, we're going to have borders, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. All of a sudden, some people didn't like it. They thought the rhetoric was too tough. And it went from doing great to doing fine. It does very nicely now. It's actually coming back, I understand, very strongly. But Doral was setting records. And I knew this would happen. Most of the stuff that I have, because now instead of having 100% of the market that loves you and they love your brand and it's luxury and it's great, now you have 50% of the market. That's called politics. I fully understood that. So it's cost me between $2 billion and $5 billion. And if I had it to do again, I'd do it in an instant. Because who cares? If you can afford it, what difference does it make? If I had this to do again, because I'm making a big difference for the country. The country is stronger now than it's been in many years, maybe ever. Our military is rebuilt. Our economy is hitting records. As I said, best unemployment numbers, best employment numbers. We're strong. We're bringing our soldiers back home from the endless wars. We're doing great. So whether I lost $2 billion, $5 billion, more or less, doesn't make any difference to me. I don't care. If you're rich, it doesn't matter. I'm doing this for the country. I'm doing it for the people that show up. I haven't had an empty seat at a rally. I always say, where's the rally? It's in a certain place. Okay, just get the biggest arena. I go into these massive basketball arenas like in Dallas where the Mavericks play and fill it up and set a record. I've set a record almost every place I've been because we just need a little small stage. We don't need basketball courts, ice hockey courts. And I take less than musicians because they have bands. I don't have band. I set the world record for somebody without a guitar, okay? I don't have bands, right? So that's the story. And you know, those people are the poll. And I've had great polls. I've had my best polls now. I think it's because people think that it's terrible what they're doing. Pelosi, Shifty Schiff, Schumer, these people are trying to destroy the country. It's a very bad thing what they're doing. The President of the United States should be allowed to run the country, not have to focus on this kind of crap, while at the same time doing a great job on Syria and Turkey and all of the other things that we're doing. North Korea, okay, maybe someday, but I'll tell you what, if somebody else became president with that same mindset that they had, you'd right now be in a big war with North Korea. You don't hear too much about it. Could happen. Could happen. I don't know. I always say, who knows? It's deals. Who knows? But in the meantime, North Korea's, I like him, he likes me. We get along, I respect him, he respects me. You could end up in a war. President Obama told me that. He said the biggest problem, I don't know how to solve it. He told me he doesn't know how to solve it. I said, did you ever call him? No. Actually, he tried 11 times. But the man on the other side, the gentleman on the other side, did not take his call. Okay? Lack of respect. But he takes my call. Thank you very much, everybody.
For the G7, so what's the plan for the G7 now if it's not in July? What's the plan for the G7 now?
We'll look at other locations. I don't think it'll be as exciting. I don't think it'll be as good. It'll cost the country a fortune because it's very expensive. I know France had a budget of many, many millions of dollars. They just did it. They did a great job, by the way. But France had a budget of many, many millions of dollars. It's going to cost, a fortune for the country. I was willing to do it for free. But if people didn't like that, they thought I may get some promotional value. I need promotional value so badly, right? I don't need promotional. Go ahead. What did you say? What else? Steve? No? That's
So,
all?
so,
Is it a foregone
on Iran,
conclusion that the House will impeach?
On
Do you
Iran, what?
believe-
Yeah.
Say,
do
what
you
you
believe it's a
mentioned the word
foregone-
impeach?
Do you believe that it's a foregone conclusion that the House will impeach?
Well, I think they want to. Any Democrat wants to because they're not going to beat me in the election. So of course they want to impeach. Why wouldn't they want to impeach me? It's so illegitimate. It cannot be the way the founders, our great founders, meant this to be. But I see this guy, Congressman Al Green, say we have to impeach him. Otherwise he's going to win the election. What's that all about? But that's exactly what they're saying. We have to impeach him because otherwise he's going to win. I'm going to win the election. Look, I have the strongest economy ever. It's the economy, stupid, right? I have the strongest economy in the history of our country. Okay, we're setting records. Over 100 times, I think it's like 118, but over 100 times we've had the highest stock market in history since November 8th. Over 100 times. And by the way, the day I got elected, the following day from there until January 20th, the market went through the roof. You know why it went through the roof? Because they got rid of Obama and they got rid of Clinton. And if anybody else, if any of these people that I've been watching on the stage got elected, your 401ks would be down the tubes. They'd go down not 20% or 30%, they'd go down 70, 90, 80, you'd destroy this country. You'd destroy the country. So I think they want to impeach me because it's the only way they're going to win. They've got nothing. All they have is a phone call that was perfect. All they have is a whistleblower who's disappeared. Where is he? He's gone. Then they have a second whistleblower. The second whistleblower's got, where is he? He disappeared. Then they have an informant. Oh, the informant is, where is he? They're interviewing ambassadors who I'd never heard of. I don't know who these people are. I never heard of them. And I have great respect for some of them. One of them said just recently, a very, very highly respected man, I'm not going to get into their names, but said, no, we were very, very bothered by Joe Biden and his son. Back during the Obama administration, he said, he's supposed to be their witness. Don't forget, many of these people were put there during Obama, during Clinton, during the Never Trump or Bush era. You had a Never Trump or Bush. You have heard of those. Those people might be worse than the Democrats, the Never Trumpers. The good news is they're dying off fast. They're on artificial respiration, I think. But no, impeachment, they want to impeach, and they want to do it as quick as possible. And that's pretty much the story.
What
Okay?
about Republican support? Are you working behind the scenes?
I think I have
to
great
show our
Republican
support in the Senate?
support.
Do you run the risk of alienating any
No, I don't think
Republicans
so
in your
at all.
party?
No,
Some are very
you know what?
angry about the
Look,
Syria decision.
No, you don't. I have to do what I have to do. I'll tell you what. I want to bring our soldiers back home. If people want to leave them there, I'll take that every day. All I know, you were at Dallas, all I know is the place went crazy when I said we're bringing our soldiers back home. Within this little area, this is a very unique area. They may feel that. But I have to do what I got elected on, and I have to do what I think is right. Now, if I got elected on something and think I was wrong, I'd second guess myself, I'd change. But they want our soldiers back home. And I think we can do as well or better, frankly. Let them, they've got to keep going at each other. It's artificial to have these soldiers walking up and down between two big countries. And by the way, I'm just informed, Larry Kudlow is going to say a few remarks. If you want, would you like to stay for Larry's remarks?
Yes, sir.
Because he's a great, great remark maker. Larry, after that whole thing, Larry, get up and go get it. I'm sure it'll be great. Let him know how we're doing, Larry. We're doing poorly, let him know, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it very much. Here's a point I want to make right at the start. You put out some great numbers on some of the recent releases. You know, first and foremost, this is a middle class boom. I can't emphasize that enough. This is a middle class boom, even though perhaps some people won't give us credit for it. You've been rebuilding the economy, re-incentivizing the economy, lower taxes, lower regulations, opening up the energy sector, tough trade reforms for level playing fields. So after 2.5 years, average real family income, $65,000. In fact, it's really closer to $66,000. It's a $6,000 gain. It's about 8%. It's better than anything our predecessors have done, be they Democrat or Republican. I'm not being partisan here.
Maybe ever,
whatsoever.
Larry, right? Maybe ever.
I'd have to go back.
Go check it. I don't think it's ever been done.
But it's a long ways. You're right. 65,000, almost 66,000. That is the middle of the middle. So I think that's very important. And the increase of roughly 8% has never been done before. And actually, if you look at the composition of wage increases, sir, the biggest gains have come in the middle quintile, the fourth and the fifth. The lowest 10% have had the biggest increases. Not the highest wages, mind you, but the biggest gains, which is what really matters to individual people. So I think that's absolutely a key point. The policies have spurred a middle class boom. Now, 3.5% unemployment, lowest in 51 years, 1.4% inflation. We've had a 50% increase on balance for the stock market. Household net worth up $12 trillion. So we're about $103 trillion to $103 trillion for American household net worth. Disposable income is now growing at 3%. The reason these key points, inflation, stocks, income, wages, there's a model, there's a couple of these models, they're very interesting. I'm going to talk about the Moody's model. It's been run by a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, Mark Zandi. Does not have much sympathetic views towards our administration, or me for that matter, but nonetheless, he's a good guy personally. I don't take this stuff personally. But their model is now showing, because of stocks, inflation, what he calls the pocketbook model, which is the average family income you talked about before, $66,000. His electoral range is 289 to 351. 289 to 351. I believe you need 270 to win. And the most important one is the pocketbook. The pocketbook model gives you 351,000. My former boss, Ronald Reagan, used to call it take-home pay. We're seeing it once again. Is this stuff going to happen? Well, their view is, and Oxford Economics said the same thing, if we continue along this path, those are the kinds.
Who's going to win the election, Larry? Is that what you're saying?
Those are the kinds of numbers that suggest a very substantial victory. A very substantial victory. Let me go on again. I'll be brief on the wrap up here. America is working, as you said, 6 million jobs, 500,000 some odd manufacturing job increases since she took office. Let me make this point. I've been working hard on this, trying to convince my former colleagues in the media. September payrolls, we're still working. September payrolls, including the revisions, up 181,000, okay? 7.1 million job openings, 7.1 million job openings, 5.8 million unemployed. We have more job openings than we have unemployed. This is the 18th straight month That is a very rare economic stat.
Almost never happens.
But let me go under the hood just for a second. Besides the payroll numbers, there's another survey from which unemployment comes from, right? That 3.5% unemployment rate comes from something called the household survey, which tends to ask individual family members, small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups, okay? Household survey in the last 4 months is exploding, and it is averaging close to 400,000 per month. In other words, payrolls came in at 180. The household survey is averaging close to 400,000. A lot of business and financial economists believe the household survey is your leading indicator. It tells me, sir, we could be in for another takeoff on the jobs story. Wages, non-supervisory production wages up 3.5%. One more leading indicator, the housing market, which has been soft for over a year. We're now seeing single-family starts and sales and pending sales have now shown several months of steady increases. That's a good leading indicator that the economy is going to be speeding up, not slowing down. All this in the face of a couple of years of very tight monetary policy and the fact that the rest of the world is not growing. Basically, Europe's been in recession. The rest of the world's been in a virtual recession because of our incentive-minded policies, because of our emphasis on trade and energy and deregulation. We are growing twice as fast as the rest of the world, and the numbers are telling me we may be ready for another pickup. We may be poised for another pickup after a quarter or two of softness. So I think we're in pretty good shape, sir. These are facts. My colleagues or my former media colleagues may or may not agree, but I'm happy to go through the facts, which is what I'm really interested here. And of course, it's not breaking news that I'm a low tax rate supply sider from the Reagan-Laffer years. But I do want to bring in my friend and colleague Russ Vaught of OMB, because part of this is the regulatory story, the deregulatory story, which is helping jobs.
We've cut regulations more than any administration in history, and that's in 2.5 years. So in 2.5 years, we've cut more regulation than any administration in the history of our country, and they've been for 8 years, and in one case for more than that. So that's been pretty good. Thank you very much, Larry. That was very good. And Russ, vote.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Russ, if you could
Yeah,
talk
we're
about.
going like gangbusters, Mr. President, as a result of your commitment to the deregulatory initiative. Some numbers for our group here. 9 to 1, you set a commitment of two deregulatory initiatives for every one. We're now at 9 at the close of our 3rd year. That is $50 billion in cost savings, up from $33 billion. And that's just for those who are regulatory parties. So if we look at the economy-wide cost savings, it's $220 billion of savings for regulations, deregulatory initiatives in the pipeline. And that's just the first round. Right now, we're going through a process to figure out what's next. We want to be finishing the big deregulatory initiatives this year that you ran on. We're going to go forward this year with some exciting things to make sure infrastructure and permitting happens on a much quicker basis. The Vice President's going to be leading a task force with governors to really multiply the efforts that they're doing on the state level, things like occupational licensing, to make sure that a hairdresser in Montana who doesn't have to, when she moves, doesn't have to go through 1,000 hours of training when she moves to Idaho. That's the kind of thing that we want to multiply between the states and the federal government to be able to really expand on the work that you've been doing. So we're excited about that, and we can't think of deregulatory initiatives without thinking about the work that Andrew Wheeler is doing at EPA. So I would love if you want to talk to about your initiatives as well.
Okay, good. I think I'll maybe start with you, Andrew, if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here to update you on the implementation of your executive order regarding waters of the U.S. As you know, under the Clean Water Act, EPA regulates the discharge of pollutants into the nation's navigable waters, also known as waters of the U.S. or WOTUS. In 2015, the Obama administration illegally expanded WOTUS to include things such as dry channels that only flows when it rains, isolated ponds, ditches. That meant that the vast majority of the nation's waters would have fallen under the federal control. The Iowa Farm Bureau estimated that 97% of the state of Iowa would have fallen under federal control. North Dakota Agriculture Commissioner estimated that over 90% of North Dakota would have been under federal control. The Obama EPA claimed that the rule was in the interest of water quality, but it was really about power in the hands of the federal government. The rule upset the federal-state partnership, and expanding WOTUS would have meant more landowners would have had to obtain costly federal permits for activities on private property. The permit process can cost anywhere from $30,000 to $300,000 for a water permit, and it takes 1 to 2 years or more. So the 2015 rule was mirrored in litigation. 31 states opposed it. Mr. President, you knew that the Obama WOTUS power grab was trouble from the get-go, and when you took office, you immediately asked us to fix the problem. EPA and the Department of Army are implementing your WOTUS executive order in a two-step process. Last month, Army Corps had R.D. James and I signed the final step 1 rule repealing the 2015 rule. So the 2015 rule is no longer on the books. We revert back to the previous water definitions prior to 2015. We are working on finalizing step 2, our new proposed WOTUS definition that we proposed last December. The proposal will clearly define what is a federal wetland as well as what is not, which is just as important, and it will limit where federal regulations apply. Our overreaching goal is that a property owner should be able to stand on his or her property and be able to tell for themselves whether or not they have a federal waterway without having to hire outside consultants to do that for them. We received over 600,000 comments on our proposal, and we intend to finalize our proposal this winter.
Thank you very much, and I know you're working on the small refineries, getting that straightened away so that it's going to be terrific for the small refineries. They've been hurt for a long time, and we gave them waivers for this year, and that's helped them a lot. But I want you to work on that, make sure the small refineries are happy, and for the farmers, ethanol now has been fully approved. We spoke with Joni Ernst, we spoke with, and very importantly, we spoke with Chuck Grassley, and the ethanol, the whole situation with ethanol that has been going on for so long, for so many years. We have that now where it's finished, approved, done, and we're getting things ready to sign. Perhaps, Sonny, you could just talk about ethanol for our farmers for a couple of minutes, please.
You've done a couple of things. You first of all committed to and fulfill your promise of making E15 year-round. That's what's really needed to build infrastructure. That's a 50% increase in domestic usage there, which will happen. Good for the economy, good for the air, and good for the ag farmers in that way. You've also balanced up the small refinery waivers with the farmers and RFS, and once they fully understand what you've done here, they'll be fine and as they see it implemented.
Yeah, they seem to be very happy. They deserve to be happy. They've gone through a lot. They were targeted by China, as you know, and we took some of the money out of the tariff, $16 billion and $12 billion for the 2 last years. And we gave it back to the farmer. They don't even want it. They just want a level playing field. But they were targeted unfairly by China. Now China is buying tremendous amounts of product, agricultural product. They've started, maybe Bob Lighthizer could give us just a little update. I noticed that today China sent out a statement that the deal is coming along very well, that they expect to have a deal. Do you want to talk about China for a couple of seconds, Bob?
Yeah, sure, President. We had deputy level meetings this morning. Secretary Mnuchin and I are going to be talking to our counterparts on Friday. We think we're making great progress. As you say, our target is to have phase 1 deal done by the time you go to Chile. And while there are still some issues we have to resolve, we're working towards that goal.
Well, one little example is the farmers. So they were told, and I was told, if we could get $20 billion a year in purchase, the biggest they've ever done is 16, is what I've heard and what they've said. If we could get $20 billion a year from China, that China purchases $20 billion a year of agricultural product, that would be a great thing. So my people had $20 billion done, and I said, I want more. They said the farmers can't handle it. I said, tell them to buy larger tractors. It's very simple. They'll buy more land and they'll buy larger tractors. But I want more. And I said, we want 60 billion to 70 billion, and we agreed to 40 to 50 billion. So they wanted 20 billion, I got 40 to 50 billion, and they've already started buying. And that's just the way it goes. So I want to thank China for that, and they have started the buying. So while we're papering the deal, and that's going well, we hope to sign it probably in Chile when we have a summit in Chile, or wherever that may be. But we'll be able to, we think, sign a completed document with China on phase 1. Then we start working on phase 2. And actually things in phase 2 are easier than phase 1. But it's so big, like as an example of the agricultural products, it's so big that we thought doing phases would be good. But actually the things in the second phase are in many ways a lot easier than the things in the first phase. So we'll see how that goes.
Mr. President, I'm not sure who told you the farmers couldn't handle it, but it wasn't me.
I think they could. I want the farmers to come tell me, sir, we can't produce that much. The farmers don't know that language, right?
Right.
But we took it from 20 to potentially $50 billion. It'll be bought, more agriculture will be bought, product will be bought than any time in our history by far. That's on top of the Japan deal that we just made, where Japan is buying a tremendous amount of ag and other things from our country and our farmers. Our farmers have been great. They never wavered. They said the president's doing the right thing. We're sticking with the president. I tell you, I didn't see anybody. They looked. Some of the networks, they looked all over for somebody that could speak negatively about the president. And those farmers, Sonny, they stuck. They said, nope, he's doing the right thing. It may be hurting us, but he's doing the right thing. And I think in many ways the farmer maybe is going to be the biggest beneficiary of what we're doing. Certainly one of them. I think our country's going to be the biggest beneficiary. Secretary, could I ask you to talk a little bit about drug pricing, because we've cut it down a lot. We had the first year ever where prices actually went down, and we had Democrat support. We could get them way down, but we don't have a lot of Democrat support. If you could talk about this.
Sure. So we've had the third year in a row under President Trump's leadership of historic levels of approving generic drugs. Those are the affordable alternatives to brand drugs. We're approaching 3,000 generic drugs approved under your tenure. That led to, just in the first 18 months of your term, $26 billion of savings for people from those more affordable alternatives. And as a result, we have seen now for the first time in 51 years the largest decrease in prescription drug pricing under the Labor Department's inflation index, the largest decrease in 51 years. We're working with Congress, of course, trying to craft a bipartisan package there. I think we're in agreement on about 80% of the items. We're probably the most flexible party in the negotiations between the Democrats and the Republicans, and trying to deliver real savings for the American people. But we're not stopping. We're continuing to work on your scheme to bring drugs in from Canada, to import drugs, and how we can make sure we're getting the same kind of deals for the American senior that other developed countries are getting, as you call it, most favored nation status. So we're driving ahead.
So I've read for years that other countries have much lower drug prices than we do. So I said to a couple of our governors, including Ron DeSantis of Florida, who's very much into it, go to Canada, where the prices are 50%, buy it from Canada. We'll give you the approval. And we're working on those final approvals now. So Canada buys because of arcane rules and because of protecting the middlemen and protecting drug companies, frankly. Other countries have prices that are much, much lower, more than 50% in some cases. Canada's pricing is much lower. So I told Ron DeSantis, I told other governors, go to Canada, go to other countries, buy them. Same product, same exact manufacturing, many times manufactured in the same plant. And a pill will cost you 50% or less than it does in the United States. That just shows you how bad people have run our country. And we're going to get tremendous price cuts on drugs. And we're in the process, and I'd like you to speed that up, Alex, if you could. Really speed it up. Because Canada is loving to sell it. And you're going to buy the exact same product for 50%. That means people are going to get a 50% reduction in drug prices. So, and in some cases substantially more. It's hard to believe how this country was taken advantage of by, frankly, everybody, in every different way, okay? So thank you. And I'd like to ask Gene Scalia to maybe speak. Gene is a highly respected gentleman and one of the best lawyers in the country, focused on labor law, and he's now Department of Labor Secretary. And it's great to have you at our first meeting. And thank you. Your first meeting. I'm very proud of you. You got through. He passed with a massive majority of your vote. What was the number?
53-44.
That's considered a massive. It's probably the largest government.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to join you, the Vice President, and the Cabinet in the important work you're doing for the American people, including on the economic front. You and Larry Kudlow mentioned some of those numbers, which really are virtually unprecedented. As you said, in some cases, unprecedented unemployment numbers since we've been tracking for African Americans, for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment rate for women in generations. And as Larry said, for those at the lower end of the economic scale, they particularly are enjoying these benefits. Americans who don't have a high school degree have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever seen. And this has been in part because of your efforts to bring about deregulation, to free employers to grow, offer more jobs. I wanted to mention two that we're doing at the Labor Department, and they're both as a result of executive orders that you issued, Mr. President. The first has to do with what we call association health plans. And this is for small employers who employ tens of millions of American workers. They're critical to our economy, but they find it hard to provide reasonably priced health care to their workers. So what we did was we reduced some regulatory hurdles that stood in the way of small employers coming together, forming an association, working with the local Chamber of Commerce, for example, to provide health care through that association. That association can give the economies of scale of a larger company. It has leverage of a larger company. It has other ways that it can tailor the benefits available to these employees at the small employers. The CBO has estimated that about 4 million Americans will benefit from these programs, and that they'll have premium reductions of as much as $2,000 as a result of these plans. I should say, some disgruntled state attorneys general, this has happened before, Mr. President, they've sued over one of your regulatory initiatives, but I'm also pleased to say that my favorite attorney general, yours, my former boss, Bill Barr, his lawyers at the Justice Department are defending this litigation right now.
Yeah, we should do it.
And we've got a related plan, what we call association retirement plans, and this again was as a result of an executive order you issued, Mr. President. Same concept. Let smaller employers come together, achieve economies of scale, exercise leverage in negotiating to offer 401k plans. There are about 40 million Americans who don't have a retirement plan, don't have a 401k plan. This will make it easier for them to get those plans. So, Mr. President, those are two examples of steps that are helping the economy. They're deregulating, but as I've described, they're helping workers get health care, get retirement.
That's a big thing on the 401k, Gene. That's very important. Thank you. Kellyanne, you were going to say about buyback.
Yes,
Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Because of the focus that you and the First Lady and the entire Cabinet and administration have placed on combating the drug supply, drug demand crisis in our nation, we are happy to report the first decline in 30 years of overdose deaths due to drugs, a decline of 5.1% overall, falling off of its peak in some of our states up to 24%, a 24% reduction in overdose deaths in Ohio, 23% in Pennsylvania. You've got about 19% in Iowa, 17% in Kentucky, 11% in New Hampshire, and 9% in the hardest hit state of West Virginia.
Those are really incredible numbers, folks. I mean, you're not going to report them, so we're just wasting our time.
Perhaps they will, but it may.
Those are great numbers.
But this battleship is turning in the right direction, albeit slowly. But Mr. President, the most significant bipartisan accomplishment, in my view, of your presidency was H.R. 6. We're on the year anniversary of H.R. 6. Every single Democrat voted for H.R. 6, including the ones running for president. It is the largest investment in billions of dollars in prevention, education, treatment and recovery, and surveillance and interdiction in our nation's history on any one drug crisis. Part of the education and equipping America is called Take Back Day. The Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, runs 2 Take Back Days each year. The next one is this Saturday. Since the Trump administration got into office, we've collected 4.6 million pounds of unused prescription drugs. Let me repeat that. It's not just 4.6 million drugs, that would be something. 4.6 million pounds. That's the weight of 18 Boeing 757 aircrafts just collected. So it is a drug supply and a drug demand crisis. We have partnered with over 5,000 law enforcement agencies, and due to private sector partnerships with CVS, Rite Aid, Google, Walgreens, Walmart, and the rest, we have 8,300 total sites nationwide now that Google will map out for us. So if you just type into the computer, take back my drugs, return prescription opioids, they will show you locations in your area, tell you how to drive or walk there. It's a safe way of returning your drugs. I think it's more convenient and more compassionate way for people to return unused, unneeded, expired pills. That happens on Saturday. The cabinet has been so consistently and so deeply involved, and I want to thank each and every one of them for this effort, Mr. President, as well as the First Lady and you. Also, I'm happy to report that CVS has fulfilled its commitment to double the number of take-back sites, and in our effort to make everyday take-back day, people don't need to wait any longer for every 6 months. Walgreens, CVS, they've got sort of safe delay, safes, where you're delaying the distribution of pharmaceuticals to make sure it's going to the person it's intended to go. Happy to report the NFL 2 weeks ago sent out a message to all of its NFL clubs, equipping them to show our Trump administration public service announcements on Opioid Take-Back Day, along with graphics, and the NFL Network is involved. And finally, Major League Baseball last week agreed to show DEA's Take-Back Day public service announcement this Friday during the World Series. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Kellyanne. Take Back Day is a big deal, and they've been talking about it for a long time. Nobody's ever done it, but it is big. And Alex wanted to mention just one additional thing.
Yeah, just on the deregulation agenda. Deregulation is it's a key part of that great health care that you've promised the American people, this vision of a personalized, affordable, patient-centric system that puts you, the patient, in the center and in control, treats you like a human being, not like a number, because if you're focusing on the bureaucracy, that's not focusing on the patient. So we've delivered $12.5 billion of regulatory savings. That's over half of the entire government. Give you an example. We have freed up 40 million hours of doctor and nurse time to not be doing paperwork. 40 million hours have been freed up that they can spend with patients instead. It's just an incredible change, and we're going to just keep delivering that level of deregulation each year.
And something that some people think could be as big or bigger than healthcare is transparency. We're doing transparency. And do you want to give just a 1-minute update on that? Transparency in pricing and transparency on the quality of your doctor?
Sure. Yeah, so this is something the President's office said that transparency, his initiatives on transparency could be bigger than any kind of healthcare, individual healthcare plan that you might have. What he means by that is what we have proposed is making all of a hospital's rates, what they have negotiated with the individual insurer, transparent and available so that you, the patient, would know before you go to the hospital what something's going to cost you on your actual insurance plan. And then we'll do that with insurance regulations so that your insurance company will send you, before you go to the doctor's office, an advance explanation of benefits that tells you the list price, the negotiated price, and what you'll pay out of pocket. We're going to make this information available to you as individuals. This is going to empower you. This will shake up the entire healthcare system to put the patient at the center so that you have the right to create a real consumer experience in healthcare, unlike what we've had for the last 50 years.
And just to end, as our trade deals start kicking in, these trade deals are incredible. Whether it's North Korea, South Korea, North Korea is going to be, probably something's going to be happening with North Korea too. There's some very interesting information on North Korea. A lot of things are going on. And it's going to be a major rebuild at a certain point. And South Korea is getting much more involved with us than we ever thought in terms of the economy and in terms of the trade deal. A lot of money is being spent over there, and they're going to be doing it through us. They've been doing tremendous purchases. We had a tremendous deficit with them, and we're slowly eating away at these deficits. We had deficits with everybody. But as the trade deals start kicking in with China, especially phase one with the farmers and with the banks, the banking system, financial services, as they start kicking in, you're going to see a tremendous difference in the economy. The economy is already by far number one. So if I weren't elected, by right now, China would be the largest economy in the world. It was expected. It was said by many people that China would right now, they were expecting around the second year of this term. Not only aren't they the biggest economy in the world, but they are way, way, way far away. We are much bigger than the China economy, and we're getting bigger, and they're not now. They have 1.4 billion people. I guess you'd call that an advantage. But we have an economy like no other. I think we have the strongest economy we've ever had. And I think if you add the economy, the military, and all the other things that we've done, there's nothing like it. But when trade deals start kicking in, and as I said, the South Korea deal did kick in, and things are happening with that are very positive. But as they kick in, you're going to see tremendous numbers, tremendous changes. Because the trade deals we had were so pathetic. They were so bad. I used to sit back and say to Lighthizer, how did somebody actually negotiate these deals? How did they even negotiate them? This was done at a level that it's not even understandable why people were allowed to do it, how they were allowed, how they got passed. But we're making great deals, and when they kick in, the economy, as good as it's been doing, I think, Larry, I can say that as good as it's been doing, it's going to be even better than that. So our country is doing fantastically well, perhaps better than ever before. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
They need to leave your staff through the end of next year.
Well, thank you very much. My fellow Americans, I greet you this morning from the White House to announce a major breakthrough toward achieving a better future for Syria and for the Middle East. It's been a long time. Over the last 5 days, you have seen that a ceasefire that we established along Syria's border has held, and it's held very well, beyond most expectations. Early this morning, the government of Turkey informed my administration that they would be stopping combat and their offensive in Syria and making the ceasefire permanent, and it will indeed be permanent. However, you would also define the word permanent in that part of the world as somewhat questionable. We all understand that, but I do believe it will be permanent. I've therefore instructed the Secretary of the Treasury to lift all sanctions imposed on October 14th in response to Turkey's original offensive moves against the Kurds in Syria's northeast border region. So the sanctions will be lifted unless something happens that we're not happy with. This was an outcome created by us, the United States, and nobody else, no other nation. Very simple. And we're willing to take blame, and we're also willing to take credit. This is something they've been trying to do for many, many decades. Since then, others have come out to help, and we welcome them to do so. Other countries have stepped forward. They want to help, and we think that's great. The nations in the region must ultimately take on the responsibility of helping Turkey and Syria police their border. We want other nations to get involved. We've secured the oil, and therefore a small number of U.S. troops will remain in the area where they have the oil. And we're going to be protecting it, and we'll be deciding what we're going to do with it in the future. In any event, by the moves that we've made, we are achieving a much more peaceful and stable area between Turkey and Syria, including a 20-mile wide safe zone. An interesting term, safe zone. That's the term we're using. Hopefully, that zone will become safe. Thousands and thousands of people have been killed in that zone over the years. But it's been sought for many, many decades, and I think we have something that's going to be strong and hold up. Turkey, Syria, and all forms of the Kurds have been fighting for centuries. We have done them a great service, and we've done a great job for all of them. And now we're getting out. Long time. We were supposed to be there for 30 days. That was almost 10 years ago. So we're there for 30 days, and now we're leaving. It was supposed to be a very quick hit, and let's get out. And it was a quick hit, except they stayed for almost 10 years. Let someone else fight over this long, blood-stained sand. I want to thank Vice President Pence and Secretary of State Pompeo for leading the American delegation so successfully to Turkey several days ago, along with National Security Advisor O'Brien. I want to thank them very much. The American delegation negotiated the original 5-day ceasefire that ended Kurdish fighters to safely leave. It just got them to a point where, frankly, they were able, it enabled them to get out, to go, and move really just a few miles in a slightly different direction. So this enabled them to do so. Countless lives are now being saved as a result of our negotiation with Turkey, an outcome reached without spilling one drop of American blood. No injuries, nobody shot, nobody killed. I have just spoken to General Mazlum, a wonderful man, the commander-in-chief of the SDF Kurds, and he was extremely thankful for what the United States has done. Could not have been more thankful. General Mazlum has assured me that ISIS is under very, very strict lock and key, and the detention facilities are being strongly maintained. There were a few that got out, a small number, relatively speaking, and they've been largely recaptured. I'm also sure that he will be issuing his own statement very shortly. We had a great talk, but we've saved the lives of many, many Kurds. He understands that. The war was going to be vicious and probably not very long. And I'm very happy to have been involved in it, as are our Vice President, our Secretary of State, and all of the other people on our team. By getting that ceasefire to stick, we've done something that's very, very special. But by getting the ceasefire after a tremendous amount of really tough war for a very short period of days, that is something very special. Our troops are safe, and the pain and suffering of the 3-day fight that occurred was directly responsible for our ability to make an agreement with Turkey and the Kurds that could never have been made without this short-term outburst. Should Turkey fail to honor its obligations, including the protection of religious and ethnic minorities, which I truly believe they will do, we reserve the right to reimpose crippling sanctions, including substantially increased tariffs on steel and all other products coming out of Turkey. We are now an economic powerhouse like never before, and very importantly, like no other. Our economic might is stronger than it's ever been, and our competitors are not doing very well. We also expect Turkey to abide by its commitment regarding ISIS as a backup to the Kurds, watching over them. Should something happen, Turkey is there to grab them. Further, we implore European countries to come and take those fighters that the U.S. captured and bring them back to their countries for incarceration and for trial. Until just recently, Europe has been very unresponsive in doing what they should have been doing for a long time. Now is their chance to finally act. American forces defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate during the last 2 years. We thank the Syrian Democratic Forces for their sacrifices in this effort. They've been terrific. Now Turkey, Syria, and others in the region must work to ensure that ISIS does not regain any territory. It's their neighborhood. They have to maintain it. They have to take care of it. There were some political pundits who responded to Turkey's offensive in Syria by calling for yet another American military intervention. I don't think so. But halting the incursion by military force would have required deploying tens of thousands of American troops against Turkey, a NATO ally, and a country the United States has developed a very good relationship with, including President Erdogan. The same people that I watched and read giving me and the United States advice were the people that I have been watching and reading for many years. They are the ones that got us into the Middle East mess, but never had the vision or the courage to get us out. They just talk. How many Americans must die in the Middle East in the midst of these ancient sectarian and tribal conflicts? After all of the precious blood and treasure America has poured into the deserts of the Middle East, I am committed to pursuing a different course, one that leads to victory for America. Through much work, we have done things that everybody said couldn't be done. Today's announcement validates our course of action with Turkey that only a couple of weeks ago was scorned, and now people are saying, wow, what a great outcome. Congratulations. It's too early to me to be congratulated, but we've done a good job. We've saved a lot of lives. Most importantly, we have avoided another costly military intervention that could have led to disastrous, far-reaching consequences. Many thousands of people could have been killed. The last administration said Assad must go. They could have easily produced that outcome, but they didn't. In fact, they drew a very powerful red line in the sand. You all remember the red line in the sand when children were gassed and killed, but then did not honor their commitment as other children died in the same horrible manner. But I did honor my commitments with 58 Tomahawks. 8 long years after President Obama's ill-fated push at regime change, U.S. troops are still on the ground in Syria. More than 500,000 people are dead, hundreds of thousands are terribly injured, and millions more Syrians are displaced. It really is a nightmare of misery. Across the Middle East, we have seen anguish on a colossal scale. We have spent $8 trillion on wars in the Middle East, never really wanting to win those wars. But after all that money was spent and all those lives lost, the young men and women gravely wounded so many. The Middle East is less safe, less stable, and less secure than before these conflicts began. The same people pushing for these wars are often the ones demanding America open its doors to unlimited migration from war-torn regions, importing the terrorism and the threat of terrorism right to our own shores. But not anymore. My administration understands that immigration security is national security. As a candidate for president, I made clear that we needed a new approach to American foreign policy, one guided not by ideology, but by experience, history, and a realistic understanding of the world. We are building up America's military might like never before, investing $2.5 trillion since my election. But we will not be depleted. We will not happen again. It will not be allowed to happen again, where our military is depleted, fighting in areas of the world where we shouldn't be. When we commit American troops to battle, we must do so only when a vital national interest is at stake. And when we have a clear objective, a plan for victory, and a path out of conflict, that's what we have to have. We need a plan of victory. We will only win. Our whole basis has to be the right plan, and then we will only win. Nobody can beat us. Nobody can beat us. I want to again thank everyone on the American team who helped achieve the ceasefire in Syria. saved so many lives, along with President Erdogan of Turkey, a man I've gotten to know very well, and a man who loves his country. And in his mind, he's doing the right thing for his country. And we may be meeting in the very near future. I also want to thank General Mazloum for his understanding and for his great strength and for his incredible words today to me, but me just as a representative of the United States, because he knows that we saved tens of thousands of Kurds. And we're not talking in the long term, we're talking in the short term. We're talking something that was going on immediately, and something, frankly, that was planned for a long time. The job of our military is not to police the world. Other nations must step up and do their fair share. That hasn't taken place. Today's breakthrough is a critical step in that direction. Thank you all very much, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gathered here with dozens of my congressional colleagues underground in the basement of the Capitol, because if behind those doors they intend to overturn the results of an American presidential election, we want to know what's going on. And it's only reasonable that we would have questions, because so far, Adam Schiff's impeachment inquiry has been marked by secret interviews, selective leaks, weird theatrical performances of transcripts that never happened, and lies about contacts with a whistleblower. And so I'm going to have a few of my colleagues give remarks, and then we're going to try to go in there and we're going to try to figure out what's going on behalf of the millions of Americans that we represent that want to see this Congress working for them and not obsessed with attacking a president who we believe has not done anything to deserve impeachment. Now the Republican whip, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Matt. What is Adam Schiff trying to hide? I think that's a question so many people have, so many of my colleagues have, so many people in the press should have, is through those hidden, closed doors over there, Adam Schiff is trying to impeach a president of the United States behind closed doors, literally trying to overturn the results of the 2016 election a year before Americans get to go to the polls to decide who's going to be the president. And frankly, it should be the people of this country who decide who's going to be the president, not Nancy Pelosi and not Adam Schiff in secret behind closed doors. The fact that Adam Schiff won't even let the press in, you can't even go in and see what's going on in that room. Voting members of Congress are being denied access from being able to see what's happening behind these closed doors where they're trying to impeach the President of the United States with a one-sided set of rules. They call the witnesses. They don't let anybody else call the witnesses. They don't even let the President's legal counsel question people who are making baseless allegations. Maybe in the Soviet Union, this kind of thing is commonplace. This shouldn't be happening in the United States of America, where they're trying to impeach a president in secret behind closed doors. The American people deserve better. We will demand better for the American people. With that, I will bring up, where's Jim Jordan? Is he here? He's probably in that room right now fighting. Mark Meadows. Mark Walker's up. Here you go, Mark.
Thank you, Whip. Thank you, Matt. The American people are being shut out. House Democrats are bypassing constitutional norms and basic standards of due process with their impeachment obsession. It has been said, but bears repeating. The president is not above justice, but as you know, neither is he below it. facing your accusers, the ability to call rebuttal witnesses, cross-examination, the right to object evidence, and ability to attend hearings, depositions, and interviews. These are basic standards that every American should expect, including the President of the United States, who is currently being the target of an angry mob, a willing media machine, and a twisted version of an impeachment process that didn't begin 2 months ago, that began day one of this administration. It is a sham, and it's time for it to end. Mr. Lee Zeldin, Mr. Biggs.
Thanks, Mr. Gates. Thanks, Mr. Scalise, for putting this together. Let me just tell you something. You should be outraged if you're an American at what's happening here. You should be allowed to confront your accusers. This is being held behind closed doors for a reason, because they don't want you to see what the witnesses are like. Let me give you an example. Recently we had the Mueller. Mr. Mueller came in to give a report in Judiciary. You were there. You saw it. The American people saw it. You know why Mr. Mueller's report fell apart and why we knew that there was nothing there? Because we got to observe Mr. Mueller himself testify. Because when he was asked questions, you could see he didn't understand what had happened in his own investigation. You saw him flipping through pages. You get to see who is accusing you. When you're denied that, you might as well be living in the former Soviet Union. This is a Soviet-style impeachment process. This is closed doors. It is unfair in every way, and I don't care whether you are the President of the United States or any other citizens of this country. You should be allowed to confront your witnesses. Absent that, you get nothing but tyranny. And that's what's going on with Mr. Schiff. We're going to go in there today and demand we get our rights as members of Congress. And with that, Zeldin, Mr. Zeldin.
I've sat through all of the depositions. I'm about to go back into Adam Schiff's bunker here in the Capitol basement to sit through another deposition today. I want all of my colleagues to know every single question that's been asked and every answer that's been told. I want all of my constituents and their constituents to know every question that's been asked and every answer that's been told. What is happening behind closed doors is unclassified. There's no reason why the American public shouldn't be able to watch this in real time live. This is a process lacking legitimacy, credibility, and fairness. And we have a huge problem with that. One fun fact from yesterday, I saw that the opening statement leaked. This is what happens. This is the Democrats' strategy. They like to cherry pick leaks. Turn to page 12. The only reference to Joe Biden, other than one reference to the July 25th transcript. In that one reference, it's not firsthand from Ambassador Taylor. It's not secondhand from Ambassador Taylor. It's not third-hand from Ambassador Taylor. Y'all making a big deal of Ambassador Taylor telling him that Tim Morrison told him, that Sondland told Morrison, that the president told Sondland, that the president told Zelensky. Give me a break. On the process and the substance, this whole thing has been a joke. And I appreciate my colleagues for having today's press conference. They deserve answers. My constituents deserve answers. I'd like to bring up Mo Brooks.
Let me focus on but one of the judicial defects foisted on the American people by Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. The use of secretive, infamous Star Chamber type proceedings in the Capitol's basement rather than public proceedings where the American people can see for themselves firsthand the railroad job being presided over by Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chairman Adam Schiff. The American people deserve a public and open process. Bear in mind the significance of what we're talking about here today. We are a republic. Close to 1 million Americans have fought in wars beginning with the Revolutionary War to give us the rights to control our own destiny. And what the Socialist Democrats seek to do today is to thwart, to disregard, to repudiate the votes of 60 million Americans in the 2016 elections. By golly, if they're going to do it in public. Don't hide it from the American people. Show your face where we can all see the travesty that you are trying to foist on America and the degradation of our republic that you are engaged in. We demand open proceedings. The American people deserve nothing less. Their representatives in Congress deserve nothing less. Next is Jim Jordan.
Well, I would just say this: why don't we know? Why don't we know who the person is who started this whole charade that Adam Schiff is now doing in the bunker of the basement of the Capitol? If you look at the whistleblower's complaint, page 1 of the complaint, he talks about more than half a dozen individuals who formed the basis of his complaint. We have no idea who these folks are. As I said last night on the floor of the House, 435 members of the House representing over 300 million Americans, and the only one of those 435 who know the individuals who started this whole thing, the only one is Adam Schiff. Why don't the rest of us know? More importantly, why don't the American people know? I think the American people, as I said before, they understand fairness, and they instinctively know that what is happening here is not fair. And that's why I want to applaud my colleagues, Whip Scalise and Matt Gaetz and the rest of the team here for standing up and saying, look, it's time that we know who started this whole thing. The more than half a dozen folks he referenced and said over the past 4 months, more than half a dozen people have informed me about this complaint that he filed. Who are those people? We've had 7 witnesses to date. I don't think any of them have been the ones that the whistleblower, the so-called whistleblower, was referring to. So we need to hear from them, and we need this done in the open so the American people can see. Thank you.
Well, listen, for 2 years, Adam Schiff told the American people that he had evidence, proof, that President Trump had colluded with Russia. And then we find out after 2 years, $25 million or more spent, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 interviews, that no, that was not the case. And then Adam Schiff on public TV says, no, our office didn't have any coordination. We didn't hear at all from this whistleblower. And then that turns out to be false. And then in a committee hearing, he makes up a totally made-up conversation between President Trump and the Ukrainian president, I assume to try to deceive the American public. And now, he wants us to believe that he's like a special counsel in these closed-door meetings over here that I can't go into as a member of the Judiciary Committee, and that even Republican members on the committee can't even see the transcripts. This is totally unjust. It's totally unfair. There was no vote on the floor of the House of Representatives, as has been done in the past, to authorize this impeachment inquiry with a standard set of rules and due process procedures that any American citizen should get, let alone the President of the United States. So I say to you, this is unfair, and it's a total political hit job on the President of the United States. And this is unjust. I hope the American people see it for what it is. Thank you.
It's time for Congress to get to work for the American people. The people of my district sent me here to get things done that they care about. Their health care costs are expensive. Their prescription drugs are becoming unaffordable. Roads are crumbling. We need to continue to rebuild our military. Look at the threats from Russia and China. And yet, what does Nancy Pelosi want to do? What do the Democrats want to do? They want to continue America on this terrible road for impeaching our president for something that he hasn't even been indicted on or found guilty of. To show you how unfair this process is, we can only look at what happened when President Nixon and President Trump were starting down the road of impeachment. First, there was an indictment. There was a finding of guilt first, and then there was a vote in the House of Representatives to start the process. A process was established. And the American public had an opportunity to view and to hear from the witnesses, to see the evidence or not. The president had an opportunity to have his counsel there by his side. He had the opportunity to ask questions. He had the opportunity to bring other witnesses. My colleagues on this committee can't even bring their own witnesses back, and they can't even speak about what is going on in there. Yet the Democrats come out and they tell what is going on. They leak certain quotes that they select to create a narrative that they want to control, that they want to put forth to the American public as a lie, with one goal in mind, to undo the election, to undo the voice of the American people from a few years ago, and to deny the American people the truth, to deny us the truth, to deny me the truth. As a member of Congress, I cannot see the testimony that was provided there from Ambassador Volker. I have requested it. I am a member of Congress. I represent over 760,000 Missourians. I represent their views. So it's time, and I call, and my colleagues call upon the Democrats to open up this process, to be fair, to shine a light on it for the American public, for posterity, and because there's so much at stake. And I call upon them to get things done, like pass the USMCA, which will create 176,000 jobs, $63 billion worth of economic activity. I think that's what we should be focusing on, and not trying to impeach a president for something he hasn't even been found guilty of. Thank you.
This is supposed to be the people's house. We, the legislative branch, cannot make a bill a law without a vote. That is how the people of Tennessee, the people of America, have a voice. Remember, Speaker Pelosi, this government, through its legislature, is of the people, by the people, for the people. Speaker Pelosi has tyrannically commandeered the House of Representatives. It is as if she thinks the founders wanted a government of Pelosi, by Pelosi, for Pelosi. America, whatever you believe about our president, you must realize that senior Democrat leadership in the House is ignoring the founding principles of our democracy. We need the House to vote on this, and it must be done in transparency. As the good book says, those things done in secret are from darkness. These elites who care nothing for the people must hear from the people. Call Speaker Pelosi and demand an end to this threat, this violation of freedom and democracy. Thank you.
Representative Mike Waltz from Florida. I'm a Green Beret. I'm a proud veteran. This process does not make me proud. I have fought from Afghanistan to West Africa. I have operated in countries, in third world countries, who have fairer processes to deal with their elected leadership than what we're seeing today. I talk to veterans at home. I talk to veterans abroad. We have operators and special operators in 60 to 70 countries today as we speak. They're ashamed of this process. They don't have a defense bill yet. We're on a continuing resolution, which means all of the new programs that they need to face China, to face Russia, to face Iran, to face North Korea, to continue to combat terrorism can't start yet because we can't seem to get it done in this Congress, because we have six committees dealing with this investigation. We have our intelligence professionals all over the world trying to keep this country safe, and we have the Intelligence Committee day after day after day dealing with this nonsense, dealing with this unfair process. I, as a sitting member of Congress, have been asking for weeks to have access to these transcripts, to have access to Kurt Volker's transcript, and you all know more about it than I do. You all who are not elected in the media. I am, representing nearly 1 million Floridians, and I can't see it. Is that fair? Is that worthy of the sacrifice of the men and women who have died for this country? I would think not. And you know what rings loud and clear to me is a veteran back home who said, all you politicians do is fight. All you do is fight amongst each other. You're doing nothing for me. You're doing nothing for the care that I fought to deserve. You're doing nothing to defend this country. You're doing nothing to move my family's life forward to do a better place. And here we are all fighting over this unfair process. It's a shame. It's not worthy. We can do better as Americans, and Americans expect us to do better. Thank you.
I'm Buddy Carter. I have the honor and privilege of representing the 1st Congressional District in Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're an American and you're within the sound of my voice, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, regardless of whether you're a Republican, or regardless if you consider yourself an independent, regardless if you hate Donald Trump or if you love Donald Trump, if you're an American, you have to be outraged by what is going on here. Since day one, the Democrats have not accepted the fact that Donald J. Trump is President of the United States. Now we find ourselves with them behind closed doors trying to impeach a sitting president. Ladies and gentlemen, if a government can do this to the President of the United States, they can do it to you as well. You need to be scared. You need to be very scared. This needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. We need open government. This is the United States of America. Please, I beg of you, pay attention, stay focused, keep your eye on the ball. What is happening here? We cannot allow this to go on. Adam Schiff has to stop. Nancy Pelosi has to stop. This process has got to stop, and it has to stop now.
Ladies and gentlemen, what makes America the greatest country on earth? It's the fact that we believe in justice. We believe in equal justice under the law. How is that achieved? It's achieved through transparency, and it's achieved through fairness. This is simply not the process that is occurring now. We have secret hearings that are going on that we, as the elected members of the United States Congress, 435 members, are not privy to. That is simply not fair. That is simply not what makes America the greatest country on earth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about the law. We are about justice. We are about doing what is right. This is not right. This is not the right process. So, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon you to call upon Adam Schiff, to call upon the Speaker, to make these processes public. We have great work to be done in the United States. We were elected to serve the people and to do their work. We're not doing that now. We're doing a grave injustice to this nation. Who benefits? North Korea, Russia, China. They're looking at us and laughing at us, making a mockery of democracy. That's what this is. It's a mockery. Please, for the sake of America, let us end this injustice and move on with the work of the people.
We're going to go and see if we can get inside. So let's see if we can get in.
Congressman, do we have any questions?
We're going in.
Congressman, any questions?
You got crews upstairs too.
Well, we can, you know what, we can do a hallway one actually. That'd be just fine, just away from this.
Yeah.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This isn't in order though. So this was the list originally, and then this morning we crossed out Murphy. And he ended up speaking, and then Congressman Cloud was going to go.
So it's still 13 people.
What a nice group. You're much happier. I was here 3 years ago. You're much happier now. And you're much wealthier, and you're providing a lot more energy than you used to. That's for sure, right? Thank you. You know, Harold is a very successful man, and I was with the great football coach, Barry Switzer. I think he might be the only one. He won in the NFL, and he won in college, right, the championship. But Barry is a great guy, great coach, and he's one of Harold's best friends. And Harold was coming into a meeting, and I was talking to Barry, and he said about Harold, you know, sir, that guy can take a straw, probably the plastic ones before they changed. I don't think it would work. The paper straws aren't working too well. Sir, he can take a straw, and he can put it into the ground, and oil comes out. And other companies, they spend billions looking for oil. They want to find that oil. They just spend billions, and they can't get it. But this guy puts a straw in the ground. I said, how cool is that, right? But that's my friend Harold. He's a great gentleman. I learned a lot about energy from him. But it's wonderful to be here back in Pittsburgh. By the way, go Steelers. Go Steelers. Big Ben, I guess Big Ben is recovering. I know Ben, he's a great guy. He's a tough cookie. And he'll be back, right? He'll be back. Big Ben. And you have a great ice hockey team, too. You have a great ice hockey team. Sidney Crosby, the whole group, you know, they were at the White House not a long time ago. And they came in, and they are a great group of people. So you have great sports place and great sports town. But I'm here with the incredible people who fuel our factories, light up our homes, power our industries, and fill our hearts with true American pride. That's you. And by the way, you guys sit down. Thank you. Sit down there. We'll be here for a little while. I like energy people. Energy people have a lot of energy, unlike some people I deal with. They got a lot of energy in more ways than one. Nobody does it better than the hardworking men and women of Marcellus Shale Country. Wouldn't it be great if New York realized what they're sitting on top of? Before the competing states take a lot of it. You know, it gets down a little bit, right? Keeps going down. They'll say, hey, we used to have a lot of energy before they took them from Pennsylvania and Ohio. But New York should do it, and New York should allow pipelines to go through so the people of New England can cut their energy costs in half, so the people in New York could cut their energy costs in half. New York doesn't allow pipelines to go through. I don't know. There has to be some kind of a federal something that we can do there. But they won't allow pipelines to go through New York this for a long time. And they won't do any fracking in New York. And they won't take all of that wealth underneath and reduce their taxes. Wouldn't that be nice? They don't do it in New York. Somebody someday will explain why. They do it in Pennsylvania. They do it in Ohio. They do it in states right around New York. They don't do it in New York. They're sitting on a gold mine of energy. With unmatched skill, grit, and devotion, you are making America the greatest energy superpower in the history of the world. You're number one by far now. Right? And I want to thank the Marcellus Shale Coalition, the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Oh, I love Ohio. I love that state. Ohio. Don't forget, for a year I had to listen to, you cannot win unless you win Ohio. I said, no, the great state of Ohio. Please treat it well. And we won Ohio by a lot. It's a great state. And another great state, West Virginia. I think we won West Virginia by 42 points. That's a lot. I would say that's a lot. But they're great people. And West Virginia Oil and Natural Gas Association, I want to thank you for the invitation to be here today. Two great groups. We're honored to be joined by members of my cabinet
who are fighting every day to support the American energy revolution. By the way, if the other people ever get in, everything I said, forget about. You won't have money to pay for a ticket to this place. You'll all be out of business very quickly. In the meantime, you're doing better than you've ever done. But I have cabinet members here, Interior Secretary, largest landlord in the United States by a factor of about 200, David Bernhardt. Where's David? David, thank you, David. Stand up. What a great job. It's basically the landlord to about half of the United States. A friend of mine, a great gentleman, he's going to be leaving, and I'll tell you, there's one that's going to do well, but he's been right from the beginning. We're almost 3 years now. Energy Secretary Rick Perry. Rick, great guy. Great guy, great competitor. I ran against Rick. He was nasty. He was tough. He was tough, but he was a gentleman. And when he decided that it was time to do something else, there was nobody that could have been nicer. He's been a tremendous asset to the administration. And he was a great governor of Texas. And he's been a great job with the energy. And that includes nuclear energy. Really fantastic job. Thank you, Rick. Another man who's here who's been incredible. He is a man that no matter what you do, it's never going to be considered right, because one group will like it and one group won't, but he's really tough. He's really smart. By the way, he loves the environment. EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler. Andrew, you've done a fantastic job. And he's right now working on small refineries, getting them everything they need to stay, because it's a highly competitive business. We want to keep them really prosperous and keep them in business. And so I know you're working on that. And he's dealing with them, I think, this week and next week. And you'll hopefully have something for the small refineries. Anybody here from small refineries? Yeah, a couple. Not too many. Oh, forget the small refineries. We don't have. Now, you're going to take care of those small refineries. They're great people, right? And they've really been incredible for our country. Several outstanding members of Congress. These are warriors. These are people that fight with me all the time on the witch hunts. I've had the Mueller witch hunt, the Russia witch hunt. I have witch hunts every week. I say, what's the witch hunt this week? They can't beat us at the ballot box. They cannot beat us at the ballot box. So they want to try and beat us the old-fashioned way, which is not very nice. They are a nasty group of people. And, you know, it's very interesting. You look at what's happened and what's been doing, and all the things we've done, and we have to get USMCA done, and they don't want to put it up for a vote. And the do-nothing Democrats, they will pass it, but it has to be put up by Nancy Pelosi. So let's see what happens, but I think they're going to put it up because everybody wants it, and I think ultimately they're going to do the right thing. But it's all ready to go. It's approved by Mexico. It's approved by Canada. It's approved by everybody that has to be approved. We have to give it a vote. It's been sitting for a long time. A lot of money wasted, a lot of jobs wasted. It's going to have a tremendous impact. But these are warriors that have been with me right from the beginning. A friend of mine, Mike Kelly, Congressman Mike Kelly. Mike, stand up. Great job, Mike. A man with the greatest name in show business, Guy Reschenthaler. Now, anybody can get elected to Congress with that name. You got to be one hell of a talent. When you can have that name and get elected, I'll tell you what. But he's a warrior. They're all warriors. This group is incredible. I won't say it about every group. Some aren't warriors, but this group is incredible. It's called Pennsylvania. It's in the genes. It's in the blood, right? It's in the blood. Another terrific guy who is always there, Lloyd Smucker. Thank you, Lloyd. Great job. G.T. Thompson. We have them all today, huh? G.T. We have them all. The great John Joyce. John, thank you. Great job. Thank you, John. Dan Muser. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. That looks like Cary Grant, doesn't he? Have you ever been told that? It's not a bad compliment, I must say. Today we have Tom Arnold, and those days you had a little different. Those days you had Errol Flynn, Cary Grant, a little different, but today we're doing better in so many different ways. And, of course, somebody that fights like you've never seen before, Fred Keller. Thank you, Fred. Great. Doing a great job. Thank you all. I mean, these are fantastic people. And David, where's David? Is he there? Where's David? What happened to him? We won't mention his name. He's in the back. Pretend that I didn't say it. When I last spoke at this conference in 2016, American energy was under relentless assault from the previous administration. You know that so well. More than a third of all of the coal mining jobs had vanished. A moratorium had been placed on new coal leases on federal land. Drilling and mining on federal lands was blocked and restricted at every turn. Desperately needed pipelines were obstructed and denied. Federal regulations and bureaucrats were working around the clock to shut down vital infrastructure projects, bankrupt producers, and keep America's vast energies and treasures buried deep underground. They didn't want to let you go get them. So good for the American people in so many ways. I promised that as president, I'd unleash American energy like never before, because our natural resources do not belong to government. They belong to the people of this country. American energy belongs to hardworking men and women like you who get up every day and make this country run. Today, I'm proud to declare that I've delivered on every single promise I made to this conference 3 years ago, and much, much more. Everyone. Wow, look at the great people. Thank you very much. 4 more years. Why don't you drive them crazy? Go 16 more years, you'll drive them totally. 16 more years. Thank you. Thank you. We're now energy independent. Who would have thought that? That wasn't going to happen for a long time. We've ended the war on American energy. And we've ended the economic assault on our wonderful energy workers. You were under assault for a long period of time, but no longer. No longer. That's why we have to keep it going. Because if you talk about assault, it was nothing compared to what would happen if one of these people got in office. What they would do to you would be unthinkable. And what they do to this incredible profession that you're in, but this segment of the economy that's so big and so vast and so many jobs would be just absolutely terrible. Hard to believe they're even talking the way they're talking. And in many ways, I think it actually would be worse than they're even saying it will be. In the process, we set off an economic boom of truly historic proportions, bringing prosperity back to cities and to towns all across America. Not only energy. Energy was just the first step in so many other ways, but without energy, it all doesn't happen. In my first week in office, I approved permits for the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines. And that's a big thing. That was a very unfair situation in the case of Dakota Access. They had built it except for one small section. And they weren't being given the permits. They had spent billions of dollars building it. One small section where it connects, they were not going to get the permits. And I gave them the permits, and they got it built, and it's been operating now and very successfully. And a lot of jobs and a lot of everything else. And a lot of clean environment, because that's what it is. And with Keystone, same thing. They have everything they need. They need a couple of little extra ones in 1 or 2 states, one state in particular, and they'll start. And it's a combination of 48,000 jobs on top of everything else. We canceled the last administration's so-called Clean Power Plan. Sounds nice, but it wasn't nice. It was a disaster. Which would have cost Americans nearly $40 billion a year and caused electricity prices to soar to double digits while cutting coal production by almost 250 million tons. We repealed the Interior Department stream protection rule, which was a disaster. It sounds so beautiful. It sounds so beautiful, and it was so bad, which would have cost businesses $1.2 billion and was a backdoor attempt to destroy the American coal industry, which is now starting to thrive again, which we're very happy about. We revoked the ridiculous Waters of the United States rule. No longer will federal bureaucrats be allowed to micromanage every public pond and drainage ditch on private land. They've taken away your rights. They took away your heart. When I did that, I had people in my office. I had miners, and I had farmers, and I had builders building homes. And many of them were tough, strong men and women, and almost all of them were crying. They said, "Sir, you've given our life back to us." I did it in Minnesota with the Iron Range. Minnesota, we gave them back the Iron Range. That was closed by President Obama. Someday they'll explain why they closed it. Finest iron ore in the world, they say. I withdrew the United States from the terrible one-sided Paris Climate Accord. It was a total disaster for our country. And I thought when I did that, it would be very tough. And all I do is get applauded for that move so much. It would have been so bad for our country. They would take away our wealth. It was almost as though it was meant to hurt the competitiveness of the United States. So we did away with that one. The Paris Accord would have been a giant transfer of American wealth to foreign nations that are responsible for most of the world's pollution. Our air right now and our water right now is as clean as it's been in decades. Shutting down American producers. The Paris Accord would have been shutting down American producers with excessive regulatory restrictions like you would not believe, while allowing foreign producers to pollute with impunity. They were allowed to do what they were doing. I'm proud that today the United States is among the very cleanest air and drinking water on earth, anywhere on earth. And we're going to keep it that way because everybody in this room, you're in the energy business, but you want the same clean water and same clean air that I do, that my family does, your family. So I just want to thank you. It's really incredible, but we're at a very, very good point environmentally right now. What we don't do to punish, thank you. Thank you. What we won't do is punish the American people while enriching foreign polluters, because I can say it right now, and I'm proud to say it. It's called America First, finally. It's called America First. My job is to represent the people of Pittsburgh, not the people of Paris. We're opening federal lands and offshore areas for responsible oil and gas production. And I opened ANWR to oil and gas in Alaska. You know, the ANWR site's one of the biggest in the world. And nobody could get it approved, including Ronald Reagan. They could not get it approved. I got it approved. And it's one of the great potential sites anywhere in the world. Nationwide, the Interior Department, thank you, David, has been drilling permits, and you've seen drilling permits increased by over 300% since I've been in office, and we are issuing permits 3 times faster than when I first took office, and that number is going up, and we're doing it in a very environmentally responsible way. David, thank you. Thank you. Oil production on federal lands is at an all-time high, and revenue to the American taxpayer from energy development has nearly doubled since I took office. Think of that. Thank you. We are streamlining the EPA's oil and gas methane rule. Don't pay attention. Don't pay attention. Saving energy producers millions of dollars in compliance costs while maintaining sterling environmental standards like never before. Yeah, don't hurt them. Don't hurt them, please. They don't know they're dealing with very tough people in this room. They don't know who they're dealing with. They don't know who they're dealing with. They just don't understand. All right, go home to Mom. Explain to Mom that you tried to take on very powerful people, and many of them physically as well as mentally. That's not a good thing to do. Not in this room. Be careful. Make sure you don't hurt them. Please. Thank you. We're also slashing the time it takes to get a permit for building critical energy infrastructure into just a tiny fraction of what it took before. America built the Empire State Building in just 1 year. Believe it or not, in 9 months. Can you believe that? They don't do that today. It should not take 10 years to get the permits to build a road or a pipeline. We brought that number way, way down, way down. And in Texas, we're working very, very hard to get those pipelines approved environmentally. And I know my people are doing it. And Rick, you're going to be giving it to some of the most talented people that are going to be taking your position. But we're working very hard to get those pipelines approved immediately in Texas, because it would make a 20% and maybe even 25% increase in oil. And, you know, as I said before, we're now #1, not by a little bit, but by far, way ahead of Saudi Arabia, way ahead of Russia, but we can do even much better than that. So we're working on that. And we're going to also work on getting a pipeline through New York. We have to do that. We can't let them hold us up like this. And as I said, the energy prices in New England, if they allowed that to happen, could be cut in half. Energy prices in New York and other areas. We have to have a pipeline go through. They won't let it happen. But we'll do our best, right? Right, Andrew? Good luck. We'll get it. We'll get it. Never made sense, does it? Can you imagine? They hold it up, they stop it. They stop it. Never made sense. That's one never made sense. And they don't drill. They don't frack. They're sitting on a fortune. What they could do, they could pay off their debt. They could pay off a lot of things. They could have taxes cut in half, maybe better than that. So someday somebody in this room is going to sit down and explain to me what the hell are they doing in New York? What tremendous potential. But we'll be talking to Governor Cuomo about it. We'll be talking to some of the people about it, because I know the people in this room want it to happen, because the prices of energy will go plummeting down. The Interior Department has already cut the time it takes to complete an environmental impact statement from more than 5 years to less than 1 year, and the average page length is down nearly 90%. I know all about environmental impact statements. I've done many of them. And then I see the same consultants that I'm paying up in places like Albany and different capitals of the states. And they're working to make the rules much tougher so that we have to hire them to get our permits. But we're trying to cut it way, way back. because I want you people to be able to move fast. And you know what? If you have a bad project, if you have a bad road, if you have a bad pipeline, if you have a bad well, I don't want you to get the permit. But you don't have to wait for almost an entire lifetime to be told no. We'll tell you in a year or less. And if you can do it, we'll tell you in a year or shortly more than a year. But we brought roads. I mean, roads are under consideration for, we have roads 21 years, 22 years. They end up costing many, many times more. Instead of a straight line, there's one particular road. It looks like this. If you've had a couple of drinks, you're in big trouble. It ended up costing many, 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 many times the cost. Took 21 years to get approved, and they circled the nesting of, you know, things you want to save, you want to help, but you also have to worry about ourselves. So they have a road, instead of a straight line, they have a road that looks like the Indy Speedway. It's not a good situation, and we're trying to do away with that. And we're very close to getting it. But permits that took 17, 18, 19 years, we think we can get. We're down to 2 years, and we think we can get it around 1. And you may get rejected, folks, but it's going to be fast. I have a friend who's been waiting 22 years to get a permit for something. I said, you know, he's devoted half of his life to getting 1 permit. And then in many cases, you don't get them. They vote no by a vote of 3-2. Guy spent 22 years. I told him, I said, you got to find another profession. But now he doesn't, because we're moving those time limits up like nobody can believe. At long last, we're reclaiming our American heritage as a nation of builders. You were stopped from building. They really stopped you. They really stopped you from building. You know what I mean. And with the help of our pro-energy agenda, and by the way, you'll never have another president like me. Okay? You'll never have. That's for sure. You'll never have another president that's going to do this stuff. Because I was a builder. It's what I did the best. I built. I really built good. I built under budget. I built ahead of schedule. You don't hear those words too much in government. But I built. And I understand what you go through. I understand how you're ruined, how you're destroyed. I also understand how bad it is for our country. But all of you here today have achieved something that everyone said was impossible. You've helped make America the #1 producer of oil and natural gas on planet Earth, by far. #1 by far. #1 by far. And think what that means for jobs. Think what that. I just left Louisiana recently, and we opened a $10 billion LNG plant. I don't know if I've ever seen a longer building. It's like a skyscraper laid on its side. It is the most incredible thing you've ever seen. More pipes in that building that nobody would realize how complex it is. But it took years and years, and it was a dead project. And I had it approved almost immediately. You know what we're talking about, fellas. And it just opened. And I went and we cut a ribbon. And it's a tremendous success. And now I think they're going to double the size of that. They're going to double it. It's already about the biggest in the world. They're going to double it. It's doing phenomenally well. It's sold out for 25 years. You know what that means? It's like an office building, except more money. Can you imagine? I never understood that. When they said it's sold out, they sold it out. Other countries have purchased the LNG, but now they're going to double it up and they're going to build another one. And we have, in Texas, we have so many things happening. It's so exciting. We have a tremendous potential in our country. People don't realize. They think we're doing well. When these trade deals become ripe, when we get them finished with China, we're doing fantastically well, fantastically well. When we get them finished with Mexico and Canada, USMCA. When we get some of the other ones, as an example, we finished it with South Korea. What a difference that has made. That was a Hillary Clinton deal. She said, this will produce 250,000 jobs. And she was right, except the jobs were produced for South Korea, not for us, okay? She didn't tell us she meant South Korea. She said, this is good for 200. What a horrible deal that was. Our deal with South Korea, we've essentially terminated it, redone it. Brand new deal, you guys know. And it's now a really great deal. But that was a disaster. 250,000 jobs it will produce, I remember her saying. And then it turned out that it was for a different country. We don't like those deals, do we? For the first time in more than 60 years, we are an exporter of natural gas, and our net energy imports are the lowest level in more than 60 years. So, you know, in the Straits, the famous Straits where they make so much money and we protect everybody, we don't get paid, but we're starting to get paid a lot. But, you know, other people need those Straits. We don't need them much anymore. They were saying, how come American ships are doing so well? Because we don't have too many of them going over there anymore. Isn't that amazing? We don't have too many of them. Dangerous territory. We don't have too many of them going over. My administration has more than doubled approvals for LNG exports, and it's going much, much higher than that in the pipeline. I look forward to seeing even more brand new LNG facilities built with American labor and American steel. You know, with the pipelines that we approved, I said I want them to use American steel, like on Keystone. I said I want them to use American steel. And they came to me, they said, so we have a problem. They already bought it. They've got it. They just can't get their permits. Can you believe it? They had the pipeline. And so it was a little bit tough to say, bury it, and we went. So I gave them a little break. What am I going to do? But we'll write right on the bottom. Somebody said, well, that's a little bit complex. I said, no, it's not. Give me a pen. You must use American steel. And we're doing that more and more and more. Right? Our guys are doing that. To restore American manufacturing, we're reversing decades of disastrous trade policies that devastated our working class communities. Pennsylvania lost 1 in 3. Can you believe that? And it's actually a higher number. We want to be conservative because with the fake news, I have to be very conservative. Otherwise, they'll say, he didn't tell the truth. He didn't tell the truth. So we're very conservative with these numbers, the fake news. But Pennsylvania lost more than 1 in 3 manufacturing jobs after a twin disaster took place, and that's NAFTA and China's entrance into the World Trade Organization. That was a disaster. China was mainlining, and then all of a sudden, it went up like a rocket ship because of a certain politician that came up with the idea for the WTO. That was not a good idea. May have been worse than NAFTA, and I never thought anything could be worse than NAFTA. We're standing up for our great workers, and America is winning, winning, winning once again, and we're winning. We're winning, and we're respected again. We're respected. You know, respect is a part of winning. We're respected again as a country. We're not laughed at, and it's getting more and more that way, and you know it, and I know it, and you know, most importantly, other countries know it. They know it. After losing 60,000 factories, so when I first saw that number a few years ago, I said, that can't be right. I got to be careful because I have these people back here. And they'll say, it's not 60, it's like 5, right? It's 60,000. So I had it researched and checked. And you know it's right when they never correct you. I've been saying it for years. It's true. It has to be right. Otherwise, they'd say, he's not telling the truth. But after losing 60,000, it's not even possible to believe that much. 60,000 factories under the previous 2 administrations, we've now gained nearly 10,000 new factories under my administration, under the Trump administration. And NAFTA that we've been talking about will be replaced with the USMCA, which will really be a historic win for American energy producers, farmers, and factory workers of all types. The do-nothing Democrats in Congress, including Democrat Connor Lamb. This guy talks so nicely about me. He's like got my policy, except for one problem. He never votes with me, never, ever, ever. They want to take away your guns. Connor Lamb wants to take away your guns. They want to take away your energy, that one you know, right? So Connor Lamb, right here from Pittsburgh, and I appreciate, Connor, whoever you are, I have no idea what you even look like. But there's some guy named Connor Lamb who speaks very nicely about, you know why? Because you're in like a Trump district. Oh, it's right, that's true. Right? No, the president's excellent. He's doing a good job. I thought he was a Republican until I found out. I said, this guy's got to be a Republican. But he never votes with us. That's the only thing that matters, right? We don't get his vote. But we have to stop this Democrat insanity, get back to work. We have to pass the USMCA. And by the way, I have to tell you something. There's a guy named Sean Parnell, who is a fantastic military man, brilliant, got everything going. And I heard, fellas, maybe my genius congressman can tell me, I hear that Sean Parnell going to run against Connor Lamb. That will help the energy business a lot. And he should win. He should win. And Sean will vote for us, and he'll work for us. Industries are racing back to America because we've made this the best place in the world to hire, to invest, build, and to grow. We've enacted fair trade policies, unlocked affordable energy, cut a record number of job-killing regulations, and made our tax code globally competitive. Our taxes were a disaster. You couldn't compete with other nations. Since our tax cuts were passed, the largest tax cuts in the history of our country, the Democrats want to raise your taxes. I don't know, how does that work politically? I haven't figured that one out. They want to raise your taxes. I talk about tax cuts. They say, no, we want to raise your taxes. You know, they're vicious and they stick together, but they're lousy politicians, I will tell you. It's true. They got two things. They've got two things. They stick together and they're vicious. Their policies are horrible. Open borders, sanctuary cities, take everyone's guns away. But they do. They stick together. They don't have a Mitt Romney in their midst. They don't have the Mitt Romneys of the world. They stick together better than the Republicans do. I love the Republicans. 94 and 95% approval rating they gave me recently. But still, they don't stick. We got to stick together. We got to stick together. Right? Since our tax cuts were passed, nearly $1 trillion have returned from other countries back home where it belongs. Think of it. We've gotten $1 trillion with a T, $1 trillion back from overseas, from other countries, that instead of spending the money over there, the reason was it was prohibitive. You couldn't do it. It was bureaucratically impossible, and the tax rate was so high, nobody would do it. Now the money is pouring back into our country. They're using it for lots of different things. $1 trillion is going to be much more than that. Massive new investments are bringing thousands of energy jobs to states like Ohio and West Virginia that we mentioned, that we love. New Mexico, which I think we're going to win. You know why we're going to win New Mexico? Because they want safety on their border. And they didn't have it. And we're building a wall on the border of New Mexico. And we're building a wall in Colorado. We're building a beautiful wall, a big one that really works, that you can't get over, you can't get under. And we're building a wall in Texas And we're not building a wall in Kansas, but they get the benefit of the walls that we just mentioned. And Louisiana is incredible. We have a great race in Louisiana. The governor turned out to be not very popular. We have a race between a great Republican and a governor that has not done a good job. High taxes, horrible insurance. They can do so much better. We have a great Republican running in Louisiana. You've been watching that the last week. Indiana, Michigan, Tennessee, Pennsylvania, so many states. Such potential for growth. 2 months ago, I traveled to Beaver County, not far from us today, where Shell, anybody here from Shell? Shell. Where Shell is making the largest investment in Pennsylvania's history. Think of that. That's a big investment. Their gigantic new petroleum plant and petrochemical plant, it's the biggest, one of the biggest in the world, will create more than 600 new Pennsylvania jobs and thousands of construction jobs and provide a tremendous boost to the local economy, to put it mildly. A similar $10 billion investment will soon, we believe, got to get a little more push, be coming to the great state of Ohio. They'll like that. Great people in Ohio. Great. And our goal is to bring 100,000, that's a lot of jobs, energy jobs, to Appalachia and to rebuild this magnificent region. And it is a magnificent region with magnificent people, which was forgotten for too long by the Democrats. And they get votes. The Democrats would get votes. And remember what I said. What do you have to lose? I said it to Appalachia, and we did tremendously. I said it to our great African-American community. I said, what do you have to lose? You have the most crime. You have the worst education. You have the lowest home ownership. You have all these horrible statistics I'm reading. And then I said, what do you have to lose? Now the African-American community has the lowest unemployment numbers in the history of our country. They have the best employment numbers in the history of our country. They have their best poverty numbers in the history of our country, in the positive sense. And I think we're going to do great with the African-American community and the Hispanic community, which has its best numbers that they've ever had. Their median income, Hispanic median income, is the highest it's ever been, over $50,000 per person. And all of those people that came out, and they came out to vote, they'll never be forgotten again. The Democrats are trying to figure out, where the hell did they all come from? It was something. You know, a number just came out. I don't know if you saw. Moody's, respected. And it said that under the Bush administration for 8 years, median household income went up $400. That's over 8 years, okay? So remember, $400, 8 years. Under President Obama, median household income went up $975 over 8 years. Over your favorite president, President Donald J. Trump, median household income for 2.5 years. So remember this, 8 years, 400 bucks. 400 bucks. You don't even, that gets wiped out by inflation. $400, $975. In 2.5 years, our number is $5,000 plus $2,000 for the tax cuts, $7,000. How do you lose that debate? How do you lose that one? When you're up debating, how do you lose those debates? But we're very proud of those numbers, very, very proud of what's happened with unemployment for African American, for Asian and Hispanic. The numbers are the best in the history of our country. With American energy once again powering our prosperity, the United States has the hottest economy, recognized by everybody, anywhere on earth. These leaders from other countries, prime ministers, presidents, kings, queens, and dictators, they just don't want to be known as a dictator. Actually, some do, but they don't want to be known as a dictator. But they come in and they say, President, we'd like to congratulate you on the economy. They're trying to copy us. They say it won't work. Because we have the greatest people on earth. We really do. We have the greatest people on earth. I really believe that. Since the election, we've created more than 6.4 million new jobs, including more than 240,000 jobs in Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. A beautiful number is that more than 2 million Americans have been raised out of poverty, taken out of poverty. Wages are rising, and they are rising the fastest of all. A lot of you people are going to like this, for the blue-collar workers, the best proportion of anybody. Blue-collar. In the first half of this year, wages for the lowest income workers increased by more than 6%, an unheard of number. Unemployment is at the lowest rate in more than 51 years. Joining us today are a few of the hardworking Americans who are thriving thanks to America's booming energy sector. Andrea Brownlee owns and operates a trucking company that services the natural gas industry. Andrea, she's seen growth in her company. She's seen growth in the energy industry like she never thought was possible. Could you come up and say a few words, please, Andrea?
I grew up here in the Ohio Valley, the daughter of a steel worker, still actively farming my grandfather's farm. I own Brownlee Trucking, a small business providing logistics services to the ever-growing natural gas industry here in western Pennsylvania, which has allowed us to provide more jobs and opportunities to provide quality health insurance and benefits for our employees. Because of the policies and support of natural gas, we have seen amazing growth in the industry and a future with good paying jobs for our children here at home in western Pennsylvania. Thank you.
They like you. Great job. Thank you, Andrea. Rawley Kogan is a biologist and president of the Keystone Elk Country Alliance. I assume that's no relation to the Keystone Pipeline. It's supposed to be a great charity that works to conserve Pennsylvania's beautiful elk population. Rawley, I wish you'd come up and tell us a little bit about your partnership with the energy industry and how it's been so incredible for American wildlife. Rawley, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let this hat fool you. I'm a born and bred Pennsylvania proud country boy. Energy and conservation, what do they have in common? Strong partnerships and a stewardship ethic. About 2 hours north of here is a 2 million acre block of public land. And by the way, I came down here yesterday in a vehicle powered by compressed natural gas. Yeah. 2 million acre block of public land 2 hours north of here called the Pennsylvania Wilds. It's the size of Yellowstone National Park. It's the home to the easternmost wild elk herd in the United States, Pennsylvania's elk herd. In my career as an elk biologist, I have worked with this industry for 37 years. We enhanced pipelines, we lined, we fertilized, we mowed, we planted high-quality forage for elk and other wildlife. Pennsylvania's elk herd has grown from less than 100 elk in 1982 to over 1,100 elk today. And elk are a big attraction. Thank you. Elk are a major attraction. The Keystone Elk Country Alliance is a Pennsylvania-based 501c3 wildlife conservation organization. We operate and manage the Elk Country Visitor Center in Benezet. We do that in partnership with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Since opening the Elk Country Visitor Center in September of 2010, we have welcomed over 3.3 million visitors to our front door. Thank you. Those visitors generate $250 million annually in economic development, primarily in food, transportation, and lodging. The natural gas industry has been a longtime supporter of Pennsylvania's elk country. They have contributed significant dollars to Pennsylvania's elk country and also to the Keystone Elk Country Alliance's educational programs as well as our habitat projects. But most compelling to me are the leaders of this industry, the people I'm looking at right now. They care deeply about our natural resources. I've watched it for 37 years. They care deeply about our environment because it's who they are. They're from Pennsylvania, they're from Ohio, they're from West Virginia, they're from all over this country. They go on vacation in our natural resources, they take their families there. That's where they go to disconnect. I have all the confidence in the world that they're going to continue to be good stewards of our environment. Energy and conservation. There are long-standing partnerships, and I value our partnerships. I applaud your conservation ethic, and I am genuinely appreciative of your leadership in making our country energy independent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Raleigh. Thank you. Thank you very much, Raleigh. Finally, Bonnie Moore runs a farm in southwest Pennsylvania that has been in her family for more than 2 centuries. That's a long time. That is a long time, Bonnie. Over the years, Bonnie could do nothing but watch as economic decay drained her community of its vitality. It drained her community of its people and its wealth, but now it is springing beautifully back to life. Bonnie, please come up and tell us about what's going on, please.
I have lived in Washington County, PA all my life on the Moore homestead. Prior to this administration, the area was declining in jobs and population. The farmers had to work an outside job to support their farms. After this administration unleashed regulations on the oil and gas industry, our area boomed. We had job growth, supply chain growth, and the landowners were compensated for allowing the energy companies to use their properties. As a result, it has helped many landowners, including ourselves. We were able to purchase another adjacent farm with the compensation these energy companies provided, updating buildings and equipment. I want to thank President Trump and his administration for revitalizing and saving our area and America.
Thank you, Bonnie. See what you're doing, fellas? What a great job you're doing. Thank you very much, Bonnie. A thriving energy industry not only benefits hardworking Americans like Andrea and Raleigh and Bonnie, who live in shale country, it's also an enormous benefit to citizens all across our country, all across our land. According to the Council of Economic Advisors, who cannot even believe the numbers and the success that we're having, the astonishing increase in production made possible by shale and the shale revolution saves Americans $203 billion every year, or $2,500 for a family of 4 in lower electric bills, lower prices, and at the gas pump. So now you can add that $2,500 onto the $7,000. I think I'm going to do that from now on, if you don't mind, Mr. Congressman. I think we're going to do that because now you add it on, and you're getting close to $10,000 a year compared to $400 and to $975. That's a big difference. I think we have to add it on. We'll add it on, right? Why not? But despite these terrific benefits, many politicians in our country are targeting your industry and your jobs for literally total destruction. Whether you like it or not, that's where they're going. I don't know, is it on purpose? Is it stupidity? Is it through evil? How could it be possible that they do this? Virtually every leading Democrat has pledged to entirely eliminate fossil fuels, wiping out American production of oil and coal and natural gas, and by the way, jobs. These Democrat plans would obliterate millions of American jobs, devastating communities across Pennsylvania, and bankrupting families all across our nation. As long as I am your president, that will never, ever even come close to happening, not even a chance. Thank you. Anti-energy zealots are blinded by ideology. Democrats want to ban shale energy, but shale energy has reduced America's carbon emissions by 527 million metric tons per year. So what are they doing? A much better record than the European Union, which is always telling us how to do it. We should be telling them how to do it based on our economy. The radical policies of Democrats in Congress would result in massive layoffs, exploding energy prices, and a gigantic gift to our foreign adversaries. Oh, they want us to do it so badly. Because our businesses would no longer be competitive with their businesses. Some people think that that's why they come out with all of these schemes. Our vision is the exact opposite of what they want to do. Our vision is pro-worker, pro-jobs, pro-family, pro-energy, and 100% pro-American. We believe the United States should never again be at the mercy of a foreign supplier of energy. We were at the mercy for many, many decades. We are committed not only to energy independence, but to American energy dominance. And the path to that future starts right here in shale country with all of you, the proud patriots of Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia. You've always been loyal to America, and I will always be loyal to you. The job you've done is incredible. In every action I take, from defending American energy to securing American borders, to ending the endless wars I am fighting for your interests, your families, and your countries above all others. We're fighting for you. We have to fight for you, and we're fighting for you, and remember that, above all others. We were calling it Make America Great Again. We're calling it now Keep America Great. We will keep it going. And finally, as your president, we will always put America first. Thank you. From the first days of our nation, the true sources of American greatness has always been hardworking, faithful citizens just like you. The extraordinary workers of this region are the ones who forged the steel that shaped our city skylines and mined the coal that powered our industries. They farmed the fields, manned the assembly lines, and loaded those rail cars. They gave their best each and every day to build the proudest and mightiest nation the world has ever seen, and we have never been stronger economically, militarily, than we are right now. Our military has been completely rebuilt. It was their labor and their sweat that fueled America's rise. And it's your sweat and your skill and your soul and your love that are fueling the greatest comeback by far in American history. That's what we're doing. Greatest comeback we've ever seen. We are stronger today than ever before, and we will be even stronger tomorrow. You have to see what we have planned for our great country. Because we are one united team, one united people, and one United States of America. I will never stop fighting for you because I know that you are the ones who are rebuilding our nation. You are the ones who are restoring our strength. You are the ones renewing our spirit. And you are the ones who are making America greater than it has ever been before, and it's not even close. And congratulations to all of you, our great energy people, for what you've been able to accomplish, especially in the last 3 years. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.